Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
The Artifact of Balance. With a deep breath, Leon nodded slowly, unwillingly. Fine. Ask me. A soft smile crept at Cynthia's lips, appreciative but uncertain. Thank you, she replied, her voice barely audible. This means more than you know. Leon did not respond. He merely looked at her and waited for her to ask what she wanted to ask. Cynthia took his silence in stride. How did you get here? She asked, her voice low. Leon's brow furrowed deeper. What? She blinked, then coughed delicately, in herself, I mean. Lord Duke, she said. This location is locked by a barrier of space. My cultivation and sacred items created. No one should be able to breach, unless they're beyond Grandmaster realm, or know what's going on here. Her eyes narrowed a little. And your cultivation is only mid-level master realm. Leon's eyes narrowed as comprehension flickered behind them. He slowly pivoted, looking at the devastated plaza once more, but now more carefully. And now, he sees it. Weakly inscribed into the stone were radiant lines, veins of light-like through marble, coming together and creating a 200 radius circle that sprang from the earth like metal roots growing towards the sky. Suspended above each location were ancient artifacts, objects vibrating with barely held power. They throbbed like living things, radiating pale energy. He glanced over at Cynthia, then at the artifact suspended in the air, the chakra. Leon's expression changed slightly as he said in voice low, I felt it something, like someone was calling me here. As if stirred by his words, the chakra above shimmered, casting ripples of light. The air thickened, humming faintly with unseen power. Cynthia's eyes glinted, a light flickering within them. Behind her, Syra and Kyra made fleeting, fierce glances at each other. Their eyes, too, now slightly charged. Leon did not perceive this. He was staring intensely at the shimmering chakra. With a soft sigh, Leon finally lifted his gaze off the shining chakra. His steady, now sharp eyes now fixed on Cynthia. I've told you what you wanted, he growled, voice low but authoritative. Now it's your turn. Tell me what I want to hear. Cynthia bowed slightly. Of course, my lord. She hesitated, then spoke softly, but first, could I ask something of you? Leon's eyebrow went up, wary. What? She gestured toward the center of the plaza. Would you stand under the chakra? Just for a moment. His gaze tightened, suspicion growing keen. What? Cynthia's words were serene, her aura emitting quietness. I would like to confirm something. He glared at her, gaze keen, but she didn't even blink. Her aura was as even as possible, serene and still. He couldn't detect the slightest fissure in it. He closed his eyes, and eye of the judge, his passive ability, had been already engaged since they started talking. It always was. The skill had other main purposes, to catch lies and to judge intent. Malice, dishonesty, bloodlust, it all came out in the end. But now, watching her through the skill, nothing. No lie, no threat, just calm, steady truth. Too steady. Still not satisfied, Leon summoned the system in his head. System. A robotic voice responded instantly. Yes, host. Tell me, Leon asked silently, suspicion twisting in his belly. My skill, eye of the judge, is it functioning correctly? For host information, all gifts and abilities given by the system are the best in any field. The eye of the judge was made by the system. It will not fail. Leon's eyebrow flickered. That should have been comforting. But somehow, the absence of dishonesty made him even more uncomfortable. Then why? Leon whispered to himself, eyes narrowing as he looked at Cynthia. Do I feel like I can't find a single thing wrong with her? A moment later, the system's voice responded in his mind, calm, almost amused. Because, host, there's nothing to find. You don't need to be so cautious. Go with the flow. You already know what you're meant to do. Leon's brows furrowed, his jaw tightening slightly. He didn't like vague reassurances, even from the system, especially from the system. But still, the words lingered, sank in. Leon stared at Cynthia, lost in thought, until her voice broke through. Lord Duke. He blinked. She tilted her head slightly, her voice still soft. What are you thinking? Nothing, Leon answered brusquely, shaking his head as if to clear away the fog obscuring his mind. He couldn't allow this unease to continue. Fine, I'll stand there, but you better start talking after. Cynthia bowed her head slightly, her movements fluid and smooth. Of course, my lord. Leon walked to the plaza's center, every step careful, boots echoing off ancient stone. Arriving at the position directly beneath the chakra, he hesitated and stared up, weighed down by the force of what rested above. Now talk. Before he'd finished speaking, however, something shifted in the air around him. The whole devastated city quivered, as if the bones of the earth itself had been awakened. An undertone of humming ran through the earth, causing the stone on which he stood to shudder. Above him, the twin moons danced. Then, as if they were in sublime harmony, began to change, their shining faces blending, blurring into a single, glorious sphere. The sky went black, and the illusion engulfed all, a ghostly eclipse shrouding the world in its unnatural hug. Leon's breath froze, the air chilled, and mana thickened until it was on the verge of suffocation. Cynthia's voice was a whisper in the taut quiet, almost lost above the growing hum. It's starting. The chakra over Leon shook, whirling faster now, its light flashing and pulsing with growing strength. Then, in a heartbeat, the whole plaza seemed to throb with power, as if the land itself was breathing in. The chakra dropped, slow, gentle, as if drawn to him by an unseen force. Leon's eyes grew wide. The nearer it got, the tighter the pressure on his chest, such as the crush of an oncoming mountain forcing its way down. Wait, Leon breathed, a hard knot in his stomach, but his body would not budge. And then, with a terrifying whoosh, it hurled itself at him, a jag of sheer energy, such as lightning ripping through the sky. Leon's heart dropped into his stomach. His breath caught in his throat. This is it, he thought. I'm dead. All the muscles locked up. Every fiber cried out for him to run, but his body would not respond. The air was electric with energy, the planet careening wildly out of control. For an instant, his brain hung on the precipice of madness. He closed his eyes, heart pounding, his breath locked in his chest as he awaited the inevitable. But nothing occurred after the passage of seconds. He was waiting for the unstoppable crash of energy. The end of the world should have begun at that very moment, yet silence. Leon's eyes flew open. Leon blinked. The world surrounding him remained eerily still. He frantically looked around with wild eyes in an attempt to locate something. The artifact. It was missing. The chakra? Missing. There was nothing. No shimmering relic of energy. No glow. Leon's eyes scanned wildly about, confused, but there was nothing. The plaza, where power had thrived, now lay vacant. Only the chilly quiet of the night sky loomed above him, the air abnormally quiet, as if the whole world had stopped moving. Even his breathing seemed muted, as if the very voice of life had been stifled. What the devil just happened? He grunted, his voice coarse, a rough-sounding whisper engulfed by the creepy silence around him. He turned, hoping for explanations, something. His eyes locked with Cynthia, Kyra, and Cyrus standing before him, their eyes wide, their faces white with shock. The three women seemed to have seen a ghost, rooted to the spot, blinking furiously as if they were struggling to make sense of what they'd just seen. Leon's brow creased, his confusion increasing. What the hell? He had his mouth open to talk, to demand an answer, but before he could utter what he thought, a metallic tone sounded within his head, piercing the tension like a bell. Ding! Unrecognized artifact discovered. The words hung in space, disorienting, their purpose just out of sight. Leon's eyes opened wider. Deciphering source of artifact. 10%, 32%, 68%, 100%. Scan completed. Information transmitted to system. and transparent screen flickered into sight before Leon's eyes, invisible to everyone else. Divine artifact of balance. Chakra incomplete. Another window materialized. Leon froze, eyes reading the glowing text suspended in his mind like a divine edict. The chakra of balance. An ancient holy weapon of great power. Wars were waged over its ownership in the ancient era. No group ever managed to retain it. It eventually disappeared, broken into 6 pieces throughout the worlds. Ancient prophecy states, "Whosoever holds the chakra shall balance all things, creation and destruction both." Current status, incomplete. Fragment 1 bound. His breath caught. A holy weapon. The word wasn't familiar to him. In Galvia, all arms fell into 3 known categories: bronze, silver, and gold. Beyond that was myth, superstition spoken in hushed tones over ancient war stories. But this was different. Something tangible. Divine? That wasn't even beyond gold. That was madness. Then his gaze landed on the string of question marks tacked onto the end of the prophecy. His jaw clenched. What the heck is that supposed to mean? He calls system. Yes, host. What's with the question marks in the prophecy description? Due to the host's current cultivation level, additional details are withheld. Leon clicked his tongue in annoyance. TCH. Of course. But before he could shut the interface, another question came up, one that had been gnawing at the back of his head since the moment the light disappeared. You said I got the divine artifact, but it's not here. Not in my hand. Where is it? A moment of silence, and then the system replied, "The artifact is within your body." Leon tensed. My body? Yes, host. Imbued directly on your life force. If you'd like to view it, close your eyes and concentrate close to your heart. There was something in the system's voice that sounded almost awed. Leon complied before his brain had time to catch up. He shut his eyes. Darkness enveloped him, but not empty. He concentrated. Thump, thump, thump. His heart sounded in the quiet. Then, out of the emptiness behind his eyelids, light blossomed. A pale blue light whirled into sight. A rotating chakra, suspended softly in a sea of darkness. It floated close to his heart, alive, thrumming with energy like a second heartbeat. Its shape was unnatural, between solid and ghostly, changing with each pulse. Incomplete, yet divine. Incredible, Leon whispered, hardly audible. 1,000 questions burst in his head, but before he could get out even one. Thud! A harsh, sudden noise shocked him. He snapped his eyes wide and stopped. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra knelt, heads bowed low, foreheads almost on the ground. The vision took him by the chest. Their voices rang out as one, firm and unmoving. We greet our Lord, our goddess's chosen one, our goddess's future husband. Leon's blood chilled. His mind went blank. What? His voice broke, eyes wide. What did you just say? Cynthia slowly raised her head, her eyes glinting with something between wonder and destiny. You bear the chakra of balance, the sacred center of our goddess's intent. You were never intended to come here by chance, Leon. You were summoned. Kyra and Syra repeated in grave unison, and the one destined to stand beside her is you. Leon recoiled a step, heart pounding. You gotta be kidding me. The moon's chosen. We greet our Lord, our goddess's chosen one, our goddess's future husband. Leon's blood turned cold. His mind went blank. What? His voice shattered, eyes wide. What did you just say? The 3 women stayed on their knees, heads bowed so low they almost touched the floor, unshaken in their belief. Leon scanned the creepy ruins, the moonlight creating long shadows, fueling his confusion. What the hell is going on? His voice wasn't angry, lost, dazed, like someone had been plunked in the middle of somebody else's tale. Cynthia slowly lifted her head. Her dark eyes locked into his, glinting, not with fear or madness, but reverence, raw and absolute. A quiet power emanated from her, her voice hardly louder than a whisper, and yet crystal clear. My lord, she told him, you are the one we have waited for, the one we've searched for across lifetimes. You are the reason we exist, the reason we endured. She put a hand gently against her chest. All that we've done was to find you. Leon blinked slowly, a cold, strange breath filling his lungs. He couldn't grasp the weight of her words. Lifetimes? Endure? The words were like poetry or madness. His gaze swiveled between them. Cynthia, still kneeling, and Kyra and Syra, also on their knees, still frozen beside her, heads bent, faces inscrutable. Was this worship? Devotion? Insanity? He let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. Okay, just stop. Seriously. He gestured, more tired than authoritative. First of all, stand up. All of you. I can't think with you like that. For a stretch of time, they didn't stir. Then, slowly, all three women stood up in flawless synchrony. Silent, quiet, and still regarding him like he was something much more than merely a man. Leon froze, between the urge to escape from this predicament and the overwhelming desire to comprehend. Cynthia, Kyra, and Cyrus stood at once, their movement almost fervent. The change was striking. Barely seconds before, there had been wariness and hostility between them. Now, their eyes blazed with an intense fervor that bristled Leon's skin, a raw, unease churning in his breast. Priestess Cynthia, tell me all. His eyebrows furrowed. You told me you were looking for me? That all that happened to you happened because of you? What exactly does that have to do with anything? Just tell me plainly as you can. Cynthia moved forward and put a hand on her chest. Yes, my lord, I shall tell you everything. She breathed slowly, as if steadying her soul. We are the moon goddess's followers, Selena. Our goddess order has lived in secret for centuries, concealed, guarded, bound to silence. Leon nodded barely. Already know that part. Just explain what your words were saying. Why all this? Cynthia moved closer, speaking in a low and steady tone. A breath of truth spun in each word. We lived in secret because our goddess commanded us. She gazed upward at the sky, filled with moonlight. When she disappeared, our goddess left our ancestors with a prophecy. She started, her tone humble and low, of a man who would one day wake her and unlock her from her burden. Her chosen one, her destined companion. Leon's chest constricted, confusion and discomfort churning in his head. His voice was low, tinged with suspicion. Wake her up, or open her up. Yes, Cynthia's eyes locked with his, steady and firm. Let us say. She sleeps, Cynthia said slowly, as if each word bore the burden of millennia. A deep, eternal sleep. She hesitated, her face relaxing a little. But only one man can awaken her from that sleep. One soul, tied to the divine artifact of hers. The chakra, and that soul. She stepped forward slowly, nearer to him now, her voice reduced to a whisper, but not a question in her words. No hesitation. Is yours. Leon's face closed, unyielding. This is like a damn cult prophecy from a fantasy book. This is crazy, Leon whispered, his tone heavy with skepticism. So, explain to me. How did you know this was the time for your prophecy? How did you know I was the person you have been waiting for? He blinked, a flood of confusion threatening to engulf him, the combination of fear and interest churning in his stomach. How can you be so sure? Cynthia raised her hand and pointed to the sky. The twin moons in the sky had almost combined into one, shrouded in an ethereal aura of light. The prophecy mentioned signs. When the twin moons are in alignment and the stars glimmer like breath on water, he will come. That alignment recurs every 1,000 years. And tonight, the positioning of the stars. It arrived, just as you did too, in the correct place at the correct moment. Cynthia's tone was even, but the words pierced Leon to the core, like a reverberation traveling through his own soul. His throat felt parched, his chest constricting as the gravity of her words weighed down upon him. You're saying, all of this, the relic, the timing me, was predetermined? Yes, Cynthia answered, unflinching. And the last sign was the chakra, the goddess artifact of balance of our goddess. It responded to you. It selected you. Cynthia nodded, her eyes unflinching. That was the last sign. You are the one the prophecy referred to, the one who is to awaken her. Is you. Leon opened his mouth, then shut it again. He remembered it clearly now, the strange tug that had pulled him here, that heartbeat of power, the moment he stood beneath the chakra and it rushed into him like lightning. The weight, the silence, and the whisper of something ancient binding itself to his soul. It's inside me now, connected to me. His breath came slow, uncertain. You really believe I'm the one? He asked quietly. Cynthia nodded once. We don't believe, my lord. We know. Leon's mouth opened, then closed again, the gravity of his thoughts bearing down upon him. He couldn't rid himself of the feeling of the chakra surging into him, its energy now seared deep into his body. Ding! Host has gained forbidden knowledge from an outside source. The mechanical voice resonated in his head, allaying all he knew was bad and yet true. He was embroiled in something way beyond his comprehension, entangled in the web of destiny he had never asked for. He looked over at Cynthia, the anger churning in his chest congealing into an icy determination. Just accept what's going on for now, he instructed himself, trying to concentrate. He didn't have time for questions. He wanted answers. Why here? Why this location? Silver City, he demanded, his tone controlled even though everything inside him seethed. Cynthia smiled weakly, a hint of knowledge in her eyes. Most don't know, this town was named something else before it became Silver City. This town name, Selena City. It was the center of her worship. Leon's forehead creased in puzzlement. Selena City? Cynthia's face became serious. Yes, Selena City. Long, long ago it was burned down in one night. The citizens of the Moonstone Kingdom only know that much. But the fact is, when our goddess disappeared, the citizens of this city, they fled. Your ancestors, Moonwalkers, were the ones who stay behind. Your ancestors, the Moonwalkers, were among those who stayed. The Duke of Selena City back then is a devoted and true believer in the goddess. Couldn't accept to leave behind the soil that she once traversed. Therefore, he constructed the city again, and it was named in her name, Silver, just like the brightness of her glow. Leon's eyes went wide as yet another bit of forbidden knowledge fell into his mind. His cultivation was too low to fully appreciate the magnitude of it, but it felt deep. He had never known anything about this goddess or the ancient Selena City. The memories he took from the previous Leon were piecemeal, just a series of fleeting images of a long-lost family, a line of moonwalkers who had once worshipped here. Perhaps, he considered, with generations gone by, they made this all into a myth, a faraway story. Something lost. He once again surveys her with his passive skill, eye of the judge. No lie still not detected from her speech. Leon spoke slowly, his voice firm in spite of the maelstrom of confusion in his head. So why are you three alone here? Where's the rest of your tribe or other believers of your goddess? Cynthia's face clouded, her lips compressing with sorrow. They're no more, she whispered, looking away. Leon's heart contracted in shock. How? What happened? Cynthia's voice was filled with grief as she responded, a disaster, just as the prophecy foretold. Our goddess had predicted a disaster, one that would almost destroy us. Only a handful were to survive this disaster. 1 month back, of today of Startaligments. That was the start of disaster. My grandfather, my parents, Syra, and Kyra's parents. They gave their lives so that we could flee. We are the remnants of the tribe now, survivors who were to complete our goddess's task. Leon's heart moved. Their loss was true, cut deep into their eyes. He looked between Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, attempting to understand it all. But why just the three of you? Why not more of you? Cynthia tilted her chin a fraction, her eyes unblinking. I am of the priestess lineage of our goddess. Kyra and Syra's families were the protectors of our people. Actually, in truth, 5 of us from my tribe escaped and were meant to survive. Our other 2 companions, the rest of our tribe, stayed behind to ensure our safety. Her voice broke slightly at the last words, as if the weight of their loss had yet to fully settle. Leon's heart ached, his mind a mixed pot of grief for their loss and incredulity at their sacrifice. He gulped hard, still reeling. He glanced up at the sky, the light of the moon now throwing long shadows over the remains. So, tell me, how do I unseal or awaken your goddess? How does this work? Cynthia hesitated, her brow creased. That, we really don't know. Leon's eyes went wide. You what? He spoke softly, half suspecting, half amazed. Cynthia's face reddened with embarrassment, and she looked away for a brief instant. Our goddess. She said her own chosen one would find the way himself. With his own will, with his own knowledge, and the divine artifact. Only you can unseal her. Leon took a deep breath in shock, frustration eating at him. So, you're saying you know about this entire prophecy, this entire mission, and you don't even know how to unseal her. He touched his hair in an attempt to calm himself down. And this artifact you gave me, it's not complete. You didn't even realize that. Cynthia furrowed her brow. Incomplete? Leon nodded, his face set. Yes, it's unfinished. It's not whole. Like a puzzle with some pieces missing. Kyra and Syra glanced at each other, confusion on their faces. Cynthia also looked shocked. We didn't know that, my lord, she said, her voice laced with true surprise. Leon breathed a deep, exasperated sigh, his forehead rubbing his temples. So, you gave me this incredible, ancient relic, and had no idea it was in two pieces? You didn't even think to look? Cynthia blinked in shock. Her mouth opened to say something, then closed once more. I don't know, she whispered, stumbling over words. My people never told me anything about that. Even the sacred books don't say anything. Her eyes widened now, confusion and anxiety chasing behind them. But, my lord, why do you think it's unfinished? I just sensed it. This sword is unfinished, he hastily fibbed, not willing to show the system. Cynthia appeared to believe his evasive response regarding the artifact, although Leon detected the brief hesitation in her gaze. He experienced a fleeting sense of guilt writhing in his chest, but suppressed it. The system, his greatest asset, was something he'd never share with anyone. Not in this world. She bit her lip gently, then tilted her head in that soft, almost shy manner that made her seem far younger than her composed demeanor allowed. We just follow the prophecy, my lord. And as our goddess commanded, we exist only to serve you. The moons chose a part too. Cynthia replied, just follow the prophecy, my lord. And as our goddess commanded, we exist only to serve you. Leon raised an eyebrow, slightly intrigued. Serve me, he echoed. What does that mean exactly? Cynthia returned his stare with a peaceful smile. To guard you, to obey your will, to satisfy any need, any desire you have. The words fell like a spark. Since the minute Leon had set foot in the ruins, he'd been tight-wired, tense, vigilant, waiting to fight or flee. Uncanny magic, mention of gods, and risk around every corner had kept him in survival mode. But the soft words of Cynthia, hushed, polite, and imbued with faith, awakened something in him. And then, as the tension slowly dissipated and the somber mood between them grew indistinct, Leon's true nature began to seep through. The levity he used to live with, the wide smile, the twinkle in his eye, began to reappear. He allowed his gaze to wander, briefly, along the line of her body, then back to meet her eyes. His smile grew, slow and wicked. Any desire? He inquired, voice full of teasing challenge. That's a perilous vow, priestess. Cynthia blinked, but did not glance away. She knew the meaning of his glance, the charge of his smile. She wasn't innocent. Her training had taught her for devotion in all forms, spiritual, emotional, physical. There was a faint flush on her cheeks, but her voice remained firm. Yes, Lord, she replied, her tone low but unyielding. Anything to serve you is my honor. Leon breathed softly through his nose, half smiling, half thinking. The ruins around them lay still, the two moons casting long, silver shadows. For the first time since coming here in ruin, the burden on his shoulders felt a little less heavy. Leon looked over his shoulder, his gaze settling on the twin sisters. They were so alike, their green hair flowing like silk, their eyes shining with the same bright color. They were remarkably alike, but each of them carried her own individual aura. One, with a mischievous glint in her eye, had a challenge hanging in the air, while the other was serene and confident. "And what of your guards?" he asked mockingly. "Are they not also here to serve me?" Cynthia whirled round, taken aback. "Forgive me, my lord, for the interruption," she apologized in haste, dropping her eyes. Leon halted there, taken aback momentarily if he had overstepped a boundary. "Did I say something amiss?" The uncertainty lasted for a brief moment before Cynthia's next words cut into his mind. "They are no longer your protectors," she told him softly, her voice laced with the weight of sincerity. "They are yours now. Like me, they have sworn themselves to serve you with honor and duty." Leon sensed the air around him change. The weight of her words was more than he had anticipated. He hadn't expected this kind of devotion, much less from the twin sisters who stood before him, and who had always maintained their distance. Before he could do anything, both Kyra and Syra moved forward, bowing their heads in synchronization. Their voices rang in harmonious unison. "Yes, my lord," they replied as one. "Lady Cynthia is correct. We believe it an honor to serve you." Leon's eyes followed their faces. Kyra's face was stoic, her features unyielding, but there was a touch of a blush on her cheeks that rounded out her otherwise stern look. Syra, however, seemed happier, a deeper flush coloring her face, as if the mere act of committing herself gave her a sense of excitement and shyness. He blinked, the weight of their words slowly sinking in. So they really mean it? His mind raced as he tried to gauge the depth of their commitment. For a moment, his playful nature resurfaced, trying to break free from the seriousness of the moment. "Well, really," Leon began, unable to suppress a teasing smile. "You'll serve in any way." Kyra's eyes met his, steady but a little blush creeps onto her cheeks. "Any way you choose, Lord." Both sisters' faces flushed immediately. Kyra kept her composure, though the slightest pink flush tinged her cheeks. Syra, being the more expressive one, could hardly conceal the red crawling across her face. Her eyes were wide, though her voice remained steady, if somewhat shy. "Not if that's what our Lord wishes," Syra grumbled, as if attempting to keep a grin from spreading too far. For a second, Leon's mischievous nature struggled to break through the somber gloom fogging his mind. A smile fighting its way out of his lips? What's this? Am I the protagonist of some harem novel or something? Leon let out a deep sigh, the burden of his day coming crashing down on him. He couldn't help but think about how ridiculous it all had been. He remembered the events that had transpired so far, each one more ridiculous than the previous one. First, he'd spent hours honing his skills in the Silver Forest, driving himself beyond himself, earning many blank points from the system. It had been hard work, but worthwhile. He'd successfully honed his capabilities, even if the forest's creepy quietness and moving shadows had made it seem as if he was stuck in some sort of test. Then, quite unexpectedly, he'd found the elusive aqua silver flower, a flower many thought existed only in legend. A minor triumph, he considered, but a triumph all the same. And if that wasn't sufficient, he'd discovered some slice of forbidden knowledge. Then he discovered a god artifact, its power thrumming through his palms like a life force. No big deal, right? Casual discovery. Just another artifact in a series of mystical trinkets I never wanted. He chuckled to himself, half sarcastic about the silliness. But that was only the beginning. Oh no, he was now a goddess's destined husband. As if the previous strange occurrences had only been an introduction to that very revelation. And then, on top of that, he had gained 3 mighty loyalists, Kyra, Syra, and Cynthia, increasingly stronger than each of their predecessors. And, naturally, they had just offered themselves up to serve him, in whatever way he wished. One of them was a grandmaster. The other 2 were at the master level. Powerful, seasoned, and now bound to him by some mystical fate. Leon let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amazement. What a day. He was tempted to laugh just so he would not scream with confusion. Everything seemed to have occurred so rapidly, so unexpectedly. He had moved from a humble cultivator to someone destined for God's know-what, and with 3 extremely skilled subordinates now under his command. It was too much, too quick, but for some reason, he feels okay. Okay, he said, his tone icy, every word burdened with weight of authority behind the facade of humor. The teasing note in his voice didn't hide the gravity that lay beneath. But get this, if you come with me, there's no turning back. If you try to flee from me. He hesitated, his smile growing wider, taking on a feral quality, one that sent a shiver of unease through the air. He leaned forward just a little, his voice lowering. Just keep in mind, I'll track you down. And if you flee, I'll trap you in a room with me, until you never forget what happens when you try to escape. The words hovered on the air, their significance infused with an unmistakable thread of warning. His eyes did not leave them, and the force of what he was saying seemed to settle in, like an iron weight holding them anchored in place. There was something perilously seductive in the sound of his voice, a combination of charm and authority that was difficult to overcome but impossible to flee. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra stiffened momentarily. Their faces, for the barest fraction of a second, were inscrutable, eyes widening, cheeks flushing with a touch of pink, but the power of his words kept them stuck. Each of them knew what Leon was saying in his admonishment, and although they felt a flush at the audacity of it, they didn't take a step back. Instead, there was an odd combination of surprise, curiosity, and something deeper, something that brought them closer still. And then, as if in beautiful harmony, the 3 women fell to one knee, the action swift and decisive. Their faces were etched with unshakable commitment, their voices repeating the same unshakable vow. We will never abandon you, Lord, they declared together, their voice stubborn and unyielding. There was no hesitation in their voices. If you don't believe our loyalty, tie us with a blood contract. Leon's eyes narrowed, his thoughts weighing their words. They mean it. He wasn't sure how to respond to this. In Galvia, a blood oath was not a joke, a holy compulsion. Breaching it entailed calling on the ancient curse of the blood, not only against the betrayer, but also against his kin, forever stigmatized by rot and death. Leon raised a hand. That will not be required. I trust you. He shifted his attention upwards towards the sky, his eyes fixed on the twin moons suspended above the devastated city. Their soft light bathed the wasteland in an otherworldly glow, but his face remained serene, impassive. Only after a long silence did he continue to speak, his tone firm but bearing an unmistakable gravity. All right, he said, the finality of his tone evident. If you wish to come with me, then let's go. Cynthia moved forward, her commands and presence majestic. She brought up her staff with swift motion. A burst of energy crackled in the air around them, as light streamed from the end of the staff, bathing the goddess's statue in brilliant light. In the following moment, the statue disappeared, its form breaking up like fog on the wind. Leon's brow rose, a touch of real wonder entering his voice. A transportable statue, he inquired, his gaze darting from the area where the statue had been to Cynthia. Cynthia nodded, her lips curled in a peaceful smile, her eyes shining with the quiet fortitude of her faith. A sacred relic, she replied quietly, transmitted down the ages. So, our goddess can be adored wherever, whenever. Her tone was filled with an awe that made Leon stand still, aware of the great bond she shared with her goddess, and the burden of the responsibility that rested on her. It was obvious that this was not a thing, but an icon of belief and strength. And then, with a barely perceptible gesture of her hand, Cynthia waved again. The wall that had enclosed them glittered like a heat haze, dissolving into the air as if it were never there at all. The night outside seemed to breathe again as moonlight bathed the ruins in a soft, gentle light that was almost a benediction. Leon moved forward, his cloak billowing in the chill wind. The wind breathed past him, as if urging him towards something greater. Behind him, The three women trailed without a word, their footsteps silent in the stillness of the night, each one of them unshakable in her loyalty. The devastated city, once so full of life, now seemed to breathe silently. But even in silence, there was an unmistakable change in the air. It felt as if the world itself had stopped, held its breath for what was yet to be. Leon sensed it, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. He didn't realize it yet, but his fate, his destiny, it had already begun to shift from this moment on. The morning after. Morning sunlight seeped softly through the slits in the thick velvet drapes, painting golden stripes across the lavish, high-ceilinged bedroom. Dust particles swirled lazily in the air, trapped in the gentle beams of light that moved slowly over the gleaming marble floor and the delicate carvings on the exquisite furnishings. On the big silken bed, in twisted sheets of royal black, two bodies were lying together in the peacefulness of sleep. One was a man, his raven-black hair rumpled, but his face incredibly divine in the early dawn. The other, curled on his chest, was a woman of otherworldly loveliness, her long purple tresses spread out like silk across his body. When the golden light touched his shut eyelids, the man stirred. Leon's eyes slowly fluttered open, and his golden irises sparkled like two suns catching the morning flames. Warmth filled his chest, but weight too. Blinking twice to refocus, he looked down. There she lay, Arya, his love, sleeping peacefully in his arms. Her breathing was slow and measured, her lips just barely parted, her face at peace. Her frame so perfectly tucked in against his, as if she were meant to be there, like she always had been. With a smile that was soft as his touch, Leon extended his hand and played his fingers in the fall of her silky purple hair, relishing its softness. The action roused a flood of memories from the yesterday. It had been such a day. From the revelation of the divine artifact of Balance Chakra, to the startling news regarding the goddess Selena's prophecy, and the surrender of Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, three loyal believers of moon goddess Selena who now vowed to serve him. He had thought of coming back through the city gates, but the idea had soon been abandoned. The gate guards would also ask too many questions, and since the city walls and city gates guard were directly under the king's control, Leon knew that his being duke didn't mean anything in that area. The last thing he wanted was to draw unwanted attention. So, he used the secret passage, a path that he had used that morning. When at last he made it through the concealed passageway and into the room of his manor house, he spotted Arya near the window, staring out into the evening as if she had been acting as a guard sentinel. At once, as she heard him approaching, she spun to face him, her eyes bright with welcoming warmth and relief, only to narrow faintly as they alighted on the three women that had brought him. Clearly, she had been alert to something out of the way, although her distrust had been justified. But Leon never kept secrets from her. He cared for her too much for that. With serene determination, he told her everything: the divine relic, the prophecy, the now new mysterious link to the moon goddess, and the new loyalty of the three women and their source. He did not want to conceal the truth from her, because she was his wife. And reminding himself of an earthly saying, happy wife, happy life, he understood that honesty was the foundation of their relationship. Initially, Arya had been understandably wary, but as Leon explained, her face relaxed. She could see the earnestness in his eyes and comprehend the enormity of what had occurred. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded, embracing the new reality. She allocated rooms to Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, conveniently situating them directly next to his own room, and with a soft smile, escorted Leon back to their common chamber. There, in the stillness after the tumult, they had rested together. She had inquired about his hunt. He said it had been fine, that he was better now, mentally and physically, but too tired to jest and do something mischievous with her like usual. They had slept in each other's arms, wrapped in warmth, understanding, and something more, trust. But that peace was shattered, though briefly, by the slight spasm of Arya's body. Her lashes fluttered like butterfly wings, and in seconds, her violet eyes slowly opened. Slumber still lingered in them, but when they encountered his golden eyes, they softened into a smile. Without saying a word, she leaned forward and kissed him softly on the lips. Leon reacted, smiling into the kiss, his arms wrapping around her protectively. "Good morning, darling," she breathed. "Good morning, honey," he answered, laughing at how natural it was. There was something new about Arya now. She was braver, more assertive. A few fiery nights with him had brought out the passion simmering beneath her noble facade. She no longer restrained her passions or her speech. "I love waking up like this," she whispered, laying her cheek on his chest, taking deep breaths of his smell. "And your smell. It keeps me safe. It makes me a little crazy." She shut her eyes, her breathing calm, absorbed in the security of his being there, as if the rest of the world didn't exist. He smiled softly in her words, his fingers still caressing her hair once more. "You always have what you want, don't you, my dear?" She laughed and nodded. Of course. They remained like that for a moment, ensconced in the silence of the morning, relishing the fleeting stillness only the warmth of each other's presence could offer. But then, with a gentle sigh, Arya gradually started to draw away from his arms, her actions slow as if bracing herself to deal with the world beyond their little bubble. "Come on," she murmured, her voice carrying the soft hint of playfulness that always lingered between them. "We need to start the day. You've got some official stuff to do, and let's not forget 3 new guests to deal with," she added teasingly, a glimmer of mischief in her violet eyes as she flashed him a knowing smile. Leon smiled at her word, but he took her wrist and drew her back into his arms, pushing a few strands of hair out of her face. "Tell me one thing," he said. She smiled. "What? Did you feel bad when I brought those 3 women with me?" Arya hesitated, reading the question in his eyes. Then she shook her head. "No, I didn't." Her voice was calm and decisive. "I know more women will come into your life. That doesn't mean you'll abandon me, or Rias. You've already explained your unique power and what it requires." Leon's eyes softened. "And besides," Arya said with a gentle sigh, her hand tracing the curve of his chest, "I and Rias already prepared ourselves for your harem. We know you. We trust you. And also, you're that mature to know when to pause. When to say no. That's enough for me." She smiled at him with knowing. "But we just want the women you choose to be in your life will good and better for you. We didn't bear to see you hurt, darling." Leon was moved by her words. He had always dreaded that his choices would hurt her, but her faith in him, her compassion, touched him more than he could say. "I never choose wrong woman," he said with bid smile. "That's my husband," she whispered with a teasing grin, and Arya gave him a soft kiss to his cheek. He chuckled softly. "Thank you for trusting me, honey." She met his eyes with a playful glint, her lips curling into a mischievous smile as she lightly tapped his chest. "Silly husband," she teased, her voice soft yet full of warmth. "Sorry, and thank you never meant that much between us." Leon smiled, then leaned forward to kiss her forehead. "Enough talking. Let's take a bath," she said with a grin, her tone light and playful. With a smile, Leon stood up, lifting her up as they both walked into the adjacent marble-lined bath chamber. Warm water splashing, sounds reverberated off the tiles. Whispers and moans, gentle gasps and laughter filled the air as steam curled around them like clouds. There, in one another's arms, they scrubbed away at yesterday's burden, growing nearer in body and in spirit. When they finally surfaced, Arya's skin was flushed with a bright red hue, and a content, dreamy smile played on her lips. Leon also seemed easy and teasing. They got dressed together, he in a black robe with golden stitches, his dark hair smoothed back, his golden eyes glinting like coins from heaven. Arya was in a flowing white and purple gown that cinched at her body elegantly. "You are stunning," Leon told her, tucking up a clasp on her robe. "You're not less so," she countered with a grin. "This dress fits you too perfectly. Seriously, heaven save any unfortunate woman who gets in your way today." Leon chuckled. "If you continue flattery, I may get blushing." She laughed, the tone light and playful, but then her look changed slightly, the mischievous bite in her tone still there. "I wonder, though, if the 3 who were here last night will get away from your charm. Leon smiled, his eyes crinkling up with amusement as he understood just how far Arya had come. From the reserved maid he'd first encountered to the cheeky, flirtatious noblewoman and wife that she was now. It was a change that he adored. He understood it was in his nature, the trust, the encouragement, the love that had coaxed out this new part of her slowly, and he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. As he gazed at her, that same mischievous spark in her eyes, he thought to himself, I wouldn't trade this for anything. Come on, let's go get breakfast, he said with a smile. Let's, she said, but when they opened the door, they stood there. A shock wave washed over their faces as they stood in the doorway of their room, eyes wide. Something unexpected lay outside. The unspoken bond. Author notes read, first chapter 65, then this chapter 66. Leon's face clouded, brows furrowing. Arya blinked, obviously disturbed by their stern humility. A silence fell over the table. Something had to shift. Leon stood up slowly, the chair legs scraping softly against the smooth floor. His golden eyes, once warm and inviting, now burned with a quiet fire. If the three of you won't sit, he stated, voice smooth but slicing as steel encased in silk, then by all means leave this mansion. The air became icy. Even the sunlight, filtering through the high windows, seemed to stop. The three women were frozen, speechless. Cynthia's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Syra's sunny aura disappeared into doubt. Kyra's eyebrows furrowed, her breath caught in her throat. Leon emerged from his chair, his eyes unblinking. I didn't let you trail along behind me to be ornaments in the background. You're not maids. You're not furniture to stand silently against corners. Leon drew a slow breath, his voice firm, but richer now, imbued with significance. I need you to know something. Any woman I bring into my life, into this house, isn't some servant to bow or cower. She's my friend, my partner, or even my future wife. I don't want loyalty created out of fear. I don't require worship. I want hearts, minds, souls. His eyes roamed the three of them. I'm not your master. And if you wish to humble yourselves before me, if you can't meet my eye and talk as a person, then you don't belong here. The room was still. Even Arya, beside him, sensed something awaken. She looked at her husband with a new light in her eyes, pride, admiration, love. The women looked at each other. Cynthia's eyes sparkled. Her heart, long holding on to duty and propriety, creaked a little wider. He's not only nice, he's genuine. Kyra let out a slow breath, shoulders relaxing. He honors us, more than we honored ourselves. Syra, lips quivering on the verge of a smile, felt her chest expand with something warmer than reverence. Not master, friend, and he means it. Then Leon's face relaxed. The flame subsided to warm comfort. He spread one hand and said, more softly this time, please, sit down. And they sat, both of them, in silence, with something new shining in their eyes. They nodded as one and sat down. In the silence that followed, something changed, not in the air but in their hearts. At first, they had trailed after him because of the prophecy, a responsibility, to fulfill a foreordained purpose. But now, observing him speak with passion, not as a king, but as a man, they felt something change, something intimate. The goddess did not make mistakes. This man is more than a leader. He's something else. And although none of them would ever speak it out loud, a tiny yearning unfolded within them. Not for position, not for power. Leon gazed at them, their eyes relaxed by something more profound than respect. He didn't need to inquire what they were contemplating. He could sense it in the quiet they brought. His own smile was serene, knowing. Now, then, he murmured, his voice warm and low, let's eat. The maids glided in unison, placing plates in front of them. Meat from magical beasts roasted to golden perfection, soft honey-glazed bread, sliced fresh fruits, and thick porridge filled their plates. While they ate, the tension from earlier dissipated slowly. The once oppressive silence was replaced by easy chatter. Syra teased Kyra lightly, while Cynthia probed Arya about the estate with sincere interest. Arya answered with a gentle smile, providing them with a combination of friendly but amused warmth. Though having only met the previous day, there was a sense of familiarity, of having known one another much longer, as if the ties of friendship had already started to bind between them. And for Leon, glancing around the table, breakfast had never been more enjoyable. Following breakfast, the group sat on around the long dining table, the plates removed but the comfort of conversation remaining. Arya sat opposite Cynthia, and their cheerful chat flowed as smoothly as a warm brook. Arya asked them about childhood, and Cynthia smiled as she described how she, Kyra, and Syra had been raised as noble daughters, educated, trained, mannered. Kyra, normally quieter, contributed a word or two when cued, and Syra piped up here and there, her voice full of laughter. The air was effortless, full of laughter and small talk, as if these women had been friends for centuries, not days. Their connection didn't seem new. It seemed ancient, fluid, like souls reunited by destiny. Eventually, Leon cleared his throat, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. With a gentleman's demeanor and a mischievous smile playing at his lips, he spoke. "Ladies, I will be delighted to sit here all morning and hear your lovely voices and look at such great beauty. But don't we all have things to do?" His tone was teasing, but respectful, and at once the four women, Cynthia, Kyra, Syra, and even Arya, were affected by a wash of embarrassment. Cynthia's fair cheeks flushed. Kyra cast her eyes downward, lips struggling in an almost smile. Syra laughed outright, clearly amused. But it was Arya, the tough and controlled one, who shocked herself with a flush rising up her neck. Leon observed, his golden eyes shining mischievously. "So cute," he whispered, causing their blush to deepen. "Just a little warmth, just a little closeness." Leon's eyes darted across them, relishing the effect his words had produced, appreciating the delicate change in their expressions. Arya, her lips twitching into a small, teasing smile, cleared her throat, shattering the moment of mutual warmth. She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, her playful tone resuming as she addressed them. "All right, sweetheart," Arya replied, her eyes sparkling with humor. "Teasing enough for today." Leon raised an eyebrow, pretending to be innocent. "Tease? I'm just telling the truth. Is truth a tease now, so I don't know?" Arya rolled her purple eyes with a melodramatic sigh, while Leon simply smiled, feeling utterly comfortable in their banter. Cynthia observed them, her black eyes warm with admiration. "By the goddess's grace, I discovered her chosen one. But better than that, this man, he makes women near him feel safe and at ease." She remembered the destroyed village, the family she had lost. Yet, here, I don't feel like I've lost everything. Perhaps he's the type of man who can make even broken people whole again. Opposite her, Kyra sat in silence, casting an occasional glance in Leon's direction. Her face was pensive. "We've lost so much already. Our home, our people. Perhaps he's the one to ground us. Perhaps this isn't just about duty anymore." Syra, being open-hearted herself, was already smiling, her happy disposition hiding greater wounds. "He makes me laugh. He treats me nicely. No commands, no chilliness. Only warmth." Her eyes rested on him, a small glint of admiration budding. "Perhaps this is what peace is like. Perhaps he's the cause of it." The silence continued, the women deep in thought, until a snap of a finger made them jump. Leon had cracked his fingers, his hand held up in a playful motion. "What are you three pondering, ladies?" he asked with a cheeky smile. Cynthia smiled serenely and blinked. "Nothing, my lord." Kyra continued. "Nothing serious, really." But Syra, never one for subtlety, grinned. "Just contemplating how handsome and charming our lord is." "Syra," Kyra scolded, lightly slapping her sister's shoulder. Leon chuckled, not offended in the least. He was starting to understand Syra's candid nature, refreshing and warm like a summer breeze. "You're very adorable too, Syra," he replied with amused fondness. Syra laughed happily, sticking her tongue out at her sister with a mischievous glint in her eye. Kyra shot her an admonishing glare, but even she couldn't suppress the subtle pull of humor at Syra's antics. Arya, standing on the sidelines, couldn't help but inwardly sigh. He really is dangerous, not only because of his power, but that charm of his. Her eyes slightly narrowed, and a more serious thought crept in her head. When he heads to the capital, I have a feeling more women will fall for him. But just as that thought settled in, a sudden urgency snapped through her, and her eyes widened in realization. Her expression shifted from calm to mild panic as she straightened in her seat. "Leon," she exclaimed, her voice tinged with alarm. Her abrupt, panicked tone broke through the light-hearted mood, catching everyone off guard. For heads whipped around her in sync, their faces changing to worry. Leon's brow creased with worry. "What's wrong?" he asked in a steady voice. "You forgot," she exclaimed, eyes wide. Leon's brows furrow. "Forgot what?" "Really forgot?" Arya sighed. "You must be in the Moonstone Kingdom's capital, Moonspire, for the princess's ceremonial assembly. In a week." Her voice filled with urgency. Leon's eyes widened as he realized. "Shit," he swore, the word out before he could prevent it. He scratched his hair, a look of guilt on his face. "I totally forgot about that trip." Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra looked at each other in confusion, not knowing what this was supposed to mean. Observing them, Leon questioned, "Arya, how many days?" "If you depart tomorrow or the next day before dawn, you'll arrive at the capital just in time for the ceremony," she asserted. Leon let out a sudden exhalation, after considering later and inclining his head. "Then I'll depart tomorrow." He looked at her with faith shining in his eyes. "May I entrust the preparations to you?" Arya nodded elegantly, then smiled slightly. "Of course. But my forgetful lord, did you bring gifts? For the princess? The king and queen?" Leon rubbed the back of his neck, a look of sheepishness playing at his lips. I think I forgot that part." There was a moment of silence. Arya blinked once, then breathed with overacted patience, but the edge of her mouth curled with good-natured amusement. Syra let out a burst of laughter. Cynthia's accurately crafted expression broke with a flash of incredulity, but Kyra, always the straight-faced one, looked aside, but her eyes flashed across him for an instant before they cast down. Something in the guileless motion, the unguarded sincerity behind it, melted them all. Arya let out a melodramatic sigh, running her fingers through her hair. "I should have known." "Fine, darling. I'll take care of it. Or orders someone has to see you don't arrive in capital with empty-handed." Leon grinned warmly, then leaned in and kissed her cheek in appreciation. It was a light, impulsive touch, fast but full of warm affection. Arya's eyes widened in surprise, then smiled, a pale blush dusting her cheeks. "You're lucky you're charming," she grumbled. On the other side of the table, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra sat slightly straighter. They hadn't anticipated something so private, so authentic. It wasn't shocking, but the foreign heat of it flushed their cheeks a shade, each of them looking away in polite embarrassment. Cynthia then looked up, uncertain. "My lord, you're departing tomorrow?" Leon faced her. "Yes." She hesitated, then asked softly, "Then, may we accompany you?" He blinked. "You want to come?" "What?" Cynthia took a step forward. "Our mission is to shadow and guard you. Let's do that, on the highway, not merely behind your gates." Leon regarded her, then glanced at Kyra, who nodded almost imperceptibly, and Syra, whose eager eyes shone. He hesitated, considering their earnestness, then nodded at last. "All right, you can come." Arya remained silent. She smiled weakly to herself, touching her cup with her fingers. Whatever Leon would do, she would support it, as good a wife she had decided on being. After a reflective moment, Leon faced Arya once more, something mischievous sparkling in his eyes. "Actually, I have an idea. Why don't we go to the market together? Purchase the gifts ourselves. It'll be a respite from all the tension. You've been working nonstop." Her brows rose in agreeable surprise. "Are you asking me out on a date, darling?" He smiled. "Something like that." Before Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra could feel left out, Leon turned to them. You three are joining us, right? All at once, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra stiffened in their seats, taken aback. Their cheeks blazed as their hearts fluttered together. A simultaneous glance passed between them, then wandered toward Arya, as if they sought her permission. They discovered her smiling, elegant, and serene. Arya looked into their eyes, amusement dancing in her own. If you want to go along, she added, smiling warmly, I don't mind that at all. The tension shattered in the space of one heartbeat. Oh, certainly, my lord, the three repeated, voices barely a little breathless. Their minds reeled wildly. Cynthia, who was always self-contained, found herself with a tiny smile creeping up her face. He doesn't just command us, he invites us in, values us. I didn't anticipate that. Kyra blinked, wondering if she should smile or blush. He desires us to be around him, not from a sense of duty, but because he needs us there. I never thought to feel like this. Needed. Syra was already grinning, her inner life radiant like dawn sun. A date? To the market? With Lord Leon? Gods, yes, yes, 1,000 times. In that instant, whatever distance still existed between Leon and the trio melted away. Their hearts pounded a little harder. Their respect grew deeper. And one silent truth now rested quietly in each of their heads. This man is not simply our guardian. He's the genesis of something much bigger. Leon, oblivious to the tiny tempest he'd caused in their hearts, simply rose with a casual stretch. Great. We leave in an hour. The big double doors to Leon and Arya's room creaked with a smoothness as the two stepped out, planning to walk to breakfast. But the moment their eyes hit what was in front of them in the hall, both of them came to a halt. Three stunningly dressed women were standing side by side, arranged like noble flowers in bloom. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra. Cynthia was in the middle, wearing a white and blue-lined flowing gown. Her black hair fell down her back in wet waves, and her big round black eyes gleamed with subtle elegance and a dash of curiosity. The bodice of her gown fell low enough to flirt with the tender curve of her cleavage. Her body was impossible to miss. Curvy, round breasts, a tiny waist, and full thighs that spoke of strength and femininity. Her beauty was regal in quality, breathtaking yet adorably cute. Standing on either side of her were the green-haired twins. Kyra, the older one, had a commanding presence that combined elegance with unobtrusive strength. Her long green hair fell smoothly down her back, the color deep and rich like the green of leaves after rain. Framing her face, it enhanced the bright green of her eyes, peaceful but piercing, as though they were full of years of knowledge and contained only a flicker of warmth. Her face was elegant, with high cheekbones, a delicate jawline, and full lips that did not smile often but had a natural elegance. A delicate flush brushed her cheeks, suggesting the humanity beneath her dignified mask. Her physique was exquisitely proportioned, firm, rounded breasts, a chiseled waist, and softly curved hips that moved with purpose and elegance. She was both regal and profoundly real. Syra, the younger, exuded a fresh, lively charm that was impossible to ignore. Her long green hair, pulled back in a high ponytail, shone with a silky sheen and tossed about with every mischievous step she took. Her face was pliant and expressive, rounded cheeks with a rosy, natural flush, a small, gently upturned nose, and full, pink lips that frequently curled into a teasing smile. Her large green eyes twinkled with a combination of curiosity and mischief, endowing her with an aura of innocence mingled with cheeky assurance. Although shorter than her sister, her body was lush and voluptuous, fleshy, luscious breasts, a tight waist, and curved hips that moved with sinuous ease. Syra's beauty was alive, vibrant, and identifiably genuine. Leon blinked, stunned by the transition of reality about him. Yesterday, he had seen the three women in plain black robes, their bodies mostly concealed. Now, standing before him in light and color, they were stunning, each a vision of femininity, strength, and beauty. The sight hit him harder than he anticipated, taking his breath and shaking his composure. A slow warmth curled his chest, half awe, half something deeper, desire, reverence, disbelief. But he wasn't the only one who'd changed. The women, once elegant and poised, now sported dreamy, half-dazed looks. They found him, with eyes that tracked every angle. His black robe, edged with golden embroidery that seemed alive and glowed like living light. His fallen black hair slicking back to reveal a sharp jawline and golden eyes that glowed with mystery and soft command. He looked as if he'd descended from myth and into real flesh. In tacit concord, the same idea reverberated in each of their minds. God of charm. Arya, standing next to him, took it in too. She was briefly taken aback by the three women's transformation. Gracious, luminous, almost otherworldly in their loveliness. But her focus did not remain with them for more than a second. Her eyes wandered to Leon and stayed. He was not merely looking, he was lost. A small twinge poked at her heart. She didn't know why it annoyed her, but it did. Yet, being who she was, standing tall and raising her chin a fraction of an inch, pushed the feeling away, and with a small smile. A gentle cough escaped her lips, shattering the tension. Ahem, she said, a gentle, purposeful cough shattering the tense silence like a pebble in quiet water. If you ladies are quite done mooning over my husband. The voice of Arya was honey smooth, her smile smooth and serene, her eyes glittering with concealed laughter. But if not, do remind me. Perhaps I shall be magnanimous enough to spare you to be alone with him, so you can at long last whisper those sweet little sentiments you've had in your minds. The three women tensed like terrified deer. Heat blushes coursed over their cheeks, especially Cynthia's, her whole face burning to the ears. Arya's eye rose in indulgent amusement. Leon laughed, observing them in good humor. Oh, she's totally not joking, he said with a teasing voice but a soothing tone, playful undertone to his words as he absorbed the moment with suppressed amusement. Kyra, the most even-tempered of the three, recovered quickly, and bent her head, slightly her voice apologetic but respectful. Forgive us for our discourtesy, Lady Arya. Arya's teasing smile lingered, her eyes glinting with playful possessiveness. She leaned forward, folding her arms with a knowing expression. No need to apologize, she said, her voice light but full of bite. He has that charm on people, especially on women. Leon's smile grew wider at her remark, a glint of mirth in his golden eyes. Syra, still flushing but daring, smiled wide. You're right on, Miss Arya. Our Lord's charm is deadly. I could gaze at him all day. Out of the corner of her eye, Kyra playfully swatted Syra's forehead. Mind your words. Ow! Syra frowned, rubbing her head as tension dissolved into easy laughter. Leon and Arya shared laughing glances at the sisterly bickering, while Cynthia stood off to one side of the byplay, a gentle smile playing on her lips, but her eyes continuously returning to Leon, involuntarily attracted to him like a magnet. Syra, always the dramatic one, pouted dramatically. But, sister, see, our Lord is smiling. He doesn't mind. With a wicked glint in her eye, she turned to Leon. Right, Lord Leon? You didn't mind my words, did you? Leon gazed down at Syra, taken aback for a moment by her allure, her eyes shining with teasing challenge. He couldn't help but tuck away a gentle laugh as he reached out to tousle her hair. Not at all, Syra, he replied, his tone warm and sincere. Syra's face glowed, her smile wide and triumphant, as she flashed a teasing glance at her sister, silently asserting her playful victory. Leon's throat cleared, his lips twisting into a teasing smile as he turned to the three women. But, what are you three doing here? His tone was a playful questioning, though his eyes sparkled with quiet curiosity. Without a miss, the three women replied collectively, their words light but unyielding. We waited for your presence, my lord. Leon smiled more widely and raised an eyebrow. Awaiting me? But why are you doing this? Cynthia, never the flustered one, moved forward. It's our responsibility, my lord. We wait until your presence that we might sit down to have our morning breakfast. Leon blinked, surprised by the earnestness of her words. There was something intensely loyal in the way she spoke, and it hit him harder than he had expected. He hadn't been prepared for the force of such loyalty. "That mean have you not had breakfast yet?" he questioned, his confusion seeping into his tone. The three women nodded their heads as one. Leon's brow creased. "Why didn't you go to the dining room, then?" They shook their heads once more, this time with a touch of mutual comprehension. Cynthia moved forward again, her voice silky and unshakable. "How could we? Lord Leon, how could we? Your servants. Take breakfast before you." Leon's brow slightly furrowed at her statement. A thin crease of worry developed between his eyes. He began to open his mouth to respond, but hesitated, then let out a silent sigh. This isn't merely submission, it's devotion. Too much so. He knew it was founded on respect, but something about it didn't feel right. He glanced over at Arya. She returned his gaze, her forehead furrowed, obviously having his concern. His gut had been correct. This wasn't good reverence. It was on the edge of blind devotion, and he didn't like it. He inhales slowly then, facing the three of them again, his expression softened, not with pity, but with quiet determination. "Okay," he said softly. "Let's go have breakfast. Together." The women lowered their heads, then inclined their heads in elegant harmony, following Leon and Arya in a step ahead, toward the dining hall. A brief, subdued stroll through the hallways brought them to the dining hall. The large doors opened with a gentle groan, and they were enveloped in a warm breeze and the delicious aroma of freshly cooked food. The air was filled with scents of baked bread, roasting magical beast meat slathered in herbs, honey-sweet porridge, and boiled vegetables steaming in fragrant spices. The floor-length table, polished to a mirrored shine, shone in the golden morning light filtering through tall windows. Standing by the head of the table was Lillian, headmaid. Petite and elegant, she seemed something born out of the artist's fantasy. Her cropped brown hair rounded her heart-shaped face, gentle and youthful, with large hazel eyes that sparkled with wit and a hint of naughtiness. Her lips were plump, naturally rosy, and her skin had a healthy, porcelain glow. Her body, albeit petite, possessed a natural beauty, delicate curves that belied her slim frame. The traditional black and white maid's uniform clung tightly to her, accentuating the thin dip of her waist and the subtle curve of her hips. The modestly dipping neckline was just enough to reveal the soft roundness of her bust, and the white apron and flounced skirt brought a sense of girl-next-door naivety. Each inch of her presentation was balanced, professional, elegant, but unmistakably captivating. She provided a dignified bow as soon as Leon and Arya entered. "Good morning, Lord Leon, Lady Arya." She greeted them with a soft, clear voice, her face radiant. "Breakfast is ready." Lillian's eyes flashed briefly in the direction of the three new women, a glint of curiosity in her wide hazel eyes. But when her gaze came back to Leon, tall in his black and gold robe, golden eyes shining softly in the morning light, her breath snagged. Her heart missed a beat, and her equilibrium faltered for an instant. "He looks beautiful," she thought helplessly, her cheeks flushing. "Hey!" Rhea caught the flicker of emotion and smirked knowingly. Her voice danced through the room, soft and amused, yet sharp as silk thread. "One more clean hit, darling," she teased, folding her arms with a flourish and cocking one brow. "You're on a streak." Leon burst into hearty laughter, the sound rich and carefree. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra joined in, their giggles bubbling like a chorus of bells. Lillian blinked, stunned at first, then it hit her. The realization dawned like a flare of light in the blackness. Her cheeks flushed red, and her staring eyes went impossibly wide. Her lips opened in shock, then snapped together as embarrassment burst across her face like fire. Leon leaned in, his voice warm and playful. "You look cute, Lillian." The word struck like a finishing, brutal blow. Her mouth shook as she attempted to say something, her voice barely audible and seasoned with frantic alarm. "TT, thank you, my lord." And the smile, his smile. Leon's effortless, winning smile that seemed to vibrate directly through her. Her knees almost buckled. With a soft squeak, She curtsied so rapidly it was nearly a tumble. Please enjoy your breakfast. I just remembered something, she stuttered, and all but ran out of the dining hall, nearly racing as her mortification pursued her down the hallway like a storm. All five laughed uproariously. Arya cast a look at Leon, her lips spreading in mirth. Darling, what do you do to poor Lilin? Leon raised his hands in protest. I didn't do anything. Hum. Arya breathed with a playful sigh, moving to sit beside him to his left. Leon sat at the head of the table and glanced to his right, to find the three women lingering, uncertain. Frowning, he said, Why aren't you sitting? Cynthia stepped forward, bowing her head. Pardon us, my lord, but we are your servants. It would not be fitting to sit beside you. Leon's face grew stern, his brows furrowed. Arya blinked, obviously disturbed by their unbending humility. A tense silence fell over the table. Something was going to have to shift. Beneath the city's gaze, morning sunlight poured over the sweeping courtyard of Leon's mansion, spreading golden strands of light over buff stone and sparkled softly off the pruned bushes, flora, and marble columns. The former stately silence of the aristocratic mansion awakened with soft footsteps and soft speech. The big doors creaked open slowly, and from within emerged Leon, Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra. They no longer wore their traditional noble, elegant attire. Rather, they wore simple, humble clothing similar to that worn by merchants and commoners. These garments were carefully selected in order to make them blend into the crowd of busy markets. Leon headed the group. His typical black noble robe with golden trim had been substituted with a simple black linen robe, humble in design but well sewn, an illusion of humility that still exuded elegance. His long, jet-black hair, usually left loose flowing behind him in full nobility, was loosely bound at the back of his neck. Arya came next. Her deep purple velvet gown, typically layered and silver-threaded, was now a plain purple cotton robe, but possessed an understated beauty. Cynthia's soft white robe was plain but immaculately clean. Kyra and Syra wore plain green and yellow-hued robes, perfect for going incognito. And yet, if anyone looked closely, they would see the fine stitching. The thread work of their garments was too intricate and fine to be on a commoner's dress. At a distance, their garments looked plain, but close up, the quality of the material and stitching was discernible. Their garments were meant for blending in, but it subtly indicated their noble lineage. Earlier that day, it was Arya who had proposed a change of attire. When Leon proposed going to the market together, she cocked her head knowingly and said, We should go incognito, as merchants or commoners. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra looked at each other in confusion. What? Syra asked, perplexed. Arya smiled softly and went on. Each time Leon and I venture out, whether for formal business or simply to explore the city, people swarm around him. He never truly gets to enjoy anything. Whispers, staring, tailing, it wears me out. The three women caught at once. Leon himself nodded. He remembered memories, those passed down from the original Leon. Of markets spent with heads turned, whispers surrounding him like bees. It was never a matter of peace or experience, but only spectacle. So, thus did they all consent, simpler apparel, covert identity, and a modicum of liberty. Now, under the sunlight of the courtyard, Arya released a soft breath, attracting everybody's attention. Leon turned to her with an uplifted brow, a trace of curiosity in his tone. What is it? Arya provided him with a teasing smile, her eyes gleaming with playfulness. You change clothes, of course. But what am I supposed to do about your face, darling? Leon laughed, clearly entertained. You're saying I still don't look bad enough? Leon laughed, his voice warm and unself-conscious, his eyes glinting with mirth. Taking another step closer, his face splitting into a playfully teasing smirk, he stated, You're saying I still don't look ugly enough to blend in as a commoner? Arya rolled her eyes, though her smile only grew. Exactly. One look at you, and every female in the market, young, old, married or not, will lose consciousness after seeing you. He chuckled again, then glanced at the others. Then what about all of you? He said, his eyes drifting from Arya to Cynthia, then to Kyra and Syra. You all still look beautiful. Honestly, it's hopeless. We'll be spotted in seconds. He gave a gentle, appreciative shake of his head and continued with a gentle smile. Actually, the four of you are just as beautiful. Four shining stars like you. Attempting to conceal yourselves during the day? Impossible. The warmth in his tone caused their hearts to skip a beat, and though they wore plain clothing, each of them felt noticed, loved. There was a faint flush to their cheeks. Cynthia looked away, her voice gentle and genuine. Even in everyday clothes, my lord, you remain handsome. Kyra simply nodded shyly, her eyes dropped but smile lightly evident. Syra, being as bold and sunny as she was, grinned widely. You're the prettiest commoner I've ever laid eyes on, my lord. If we're attempting to blend in, we're sunk. Leon grinned, his eyes truly touched by their sentiments, though a glimmer of shyness was evident. Then we'll just have to hope the crowd's too distracted to really look. Arya smiled wryly and shook her head. It's no good, with you dressed like that, and us following behind. It's just hopeless. Leon chuckled, the voice warm and full of life. Well, he said, throwing up his hands in feigned surrender, when you're this good-looking and around such beautiful beauties. Then what do we do? Laughter bubbled up from the group, light, genuine, and full of warmth. For a moment, the seriousness of titles and responsibilities dissolved. Leon smiled and clapped his hands gently. Okay, ladies, let's go to the market. We started early, so we have lots of time to have fun. The girls nodded, their excitement subtly radiating through their serene faces. They all started walking towards the exit of the estate together. As they walked out into the soft light beyond the courtyard, the atmosphere softened a little. Just beyond the open gate were a small cluster of guards in silver armor, standing with silent discipline. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood at attention, a line of living watchfulness and allegiance. Leon's pace slowed a little as he saw them, and he raised an eyebrow in surprise. Leon looked at Arya, his brow creased, confusion dancing in his eyes as he regarded the row of quiet guards. His eyes asked the question he didn't ask, and Arya picked it up immediately. She returned his look with a small, knowing nod. For safety, she replied quietly, answering the unspoken question before he could ask it. Leon turned to her, his confusion deepening slightly. You know we're going incognito, he said, his tone quiet but questioning. I know, Arya replied softly, a faint smile touching her lips. That's why. Before she could finish her sentence a man stepped forward from the line of guards, a tall figure clad in strong silver-plated armor. His posture was strict, presence commanding. Leon's eyes focused. Recognition flickered. The man kneeled a little, bowing. My lord. Leon's inherited memories emerged as he gazed at the man kneeling before him. This was Black, captain of the estate guards, a man of duty and loyalty, a member of a family that had served the House of Moonwalker for generations. The old Leon had trusted Black deeply. They had shared countless moments of leadership and loyalty in many battles and some wars. Black, still on his knees in front of Leon, spoke in a calm, respectful yet firm tone. We know you're off to the market incognito, Lord, he said, his eyes for a moment glancing towards the women standing behind Leon, his determination impeccable. But for your safety, and for the safety of the ladies, we ask to follow in your shadow. Lady Arya has already commanded us. We will remain hidden, and we won't interrupt your time or get in the way of your business unless it is absolutely necessary. Leon's thoughts flickered as he absorbed the situation. He knew it was true. Sometimes the cost of nobility had shadows that were unavoidable, shadows that could not be shrugged off, no matter one's desire for anonymity. He let out a soft sigh, bearing the weight of it. Very well, Leon said, his tone resigned but not ungracious. Follow, but in the shadows, right? Black stood up with honed accuracy, one hand on his chest in a bow of deference. As you command, Lord, he intoned, a calm assurance of loyalty and watchfulness. There was no need to remind him. Black knew his place. Leon offered a curt nod, indicating that they were off. He turned and strode towards the carriage waiting by the gates of the estate. The carriage itself was plain, humble, wooden, and spotless. There was nothing flashy about it, just a plain, rugged vehicle that any merchant could employ. It was ideal for their needs. Leon climbed on first, ascending with elegant ease. Arya came next, her presence unruffled and serene. Cynthia, Kyra, and Cyrus stepped in succession, each one climbing into the carriage with an expression of still expectation. Moments after, Black and some of the guards got up on a horseback and enveloped themselves in black robes. Even their shiny armor was concealed behind the folds of fabric, so they could disappear into the shadows as planned. The brief ride to the market area took hardly 10 minutes. The carriage slowed and turned into a peaceful alleyway, well away from the frenzy of the market. It stopped with a gentle creak, and the door opened. Leon descended first, his eyes scanning the narrow alley, his hand on the sword at his side. High walls stood on either side, and deep shadows cast by them gave privacy and protection. Behind him, Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra walked, emerging one by one in quiet elegance. The air was motionless, nearly serene, as they moved onto the cobblestone street. Black also dismounted nearby, his guards doing the same. Each wore black robes, their armor concealed beneath the garments. They moved into the shadows, becoming one with the subdued life of the quiet alley. Leon nodded in agreement, his thoughts already on what they would do next. It was the ideal time to slide unseen into the marketplace. "Let's go," he stated, moving ahead. As Leon made his initial step forward, Arya's gentle voice reached out to him. "Wait, darling." Leon halted, turning towards her with a puzzled expression. "Yes." Arya smiled, her brow furrowed in a playful yet contemplative manner. "In order to discover the ideal gift, we need someone who understands the market thoroughly. A guide, essentially, don't you think?" Leon furrowed his brow momentarily, weighing his words. It was a reasonable idea. Someone local who would be able to lead them through the market's turns and curves. Someone who would be able to assist them in blending in and locating what they were seeking. Following a momentary silence, he addressed her again, a smile dancing in his tone. "You're right, but..." He gazed into her face, and with an understanding smile, he continued, "You've already arranged for one, haven't you?" Arya smiled wider, her confidence evident in her nod. "Of course." Leon couldn't help but laugh, a mix of admiration and affection in his eyes. Always ahead of her game, he whispered to himself rather than to her. He inquired in wondering tone, "Who?" Before she could respond, there were footsteps. From the mouth of the alley, a lean, tall man stepped in, wrapped in a coarse brown robe. His body was wiry, his face etched with sunken cheekbones and intelligent, calculating eyes. His black hair was short and unkempt, and although his attire was simple, he walked with quiet confidence, each step measured. And behind the man, another came, a girl, no more than 17 or 18 years old, with long black hair that fell to her shoulders and warm brown eyes. She wore a brown robe like his, simple and soft. But her beauty could not be concealed. Her face was finely shaped, soft cheeks with a gentle glow, full lips and bright, inquisitive eyes. Her body, well covered though it was, connoted youth's grace. Rounded in every place it was supposed to be, flawless, smooth-breasted, narrow-waisted, softly rounded hips, and a shy, vigilant posture. Leon narrowed his eyes, acknowledging the voice, and the face which came after it. It was Ronan, proprietor of the Moon's Shadow Tavern, and one of his best, secret spying eyes in the city. As with Black, Ronan was a dutiful underling, a student of subtle observation and street wisdom. He knew the capital's every corner, every rumor in its backstreets. Emerging from the shadows with quiet assurance, Ronan bowed slightly and spoke in a low, crisp voice, "Greetings, Your Grace." Beneath the city's gaze, Part 2. Ronan moved forward, his countenance serene and respectful as he bowed to Leon. "Good day, Your Grace," he stated, his voice firm and full of respect. To his left, just behind him, the girl echoed the gesture with sincere grace. Her brown tunic rustled softly as she bowed silently. Leon matched the gesture with a smiling face and a silent head bob. Ronan straightened up smoothly from his bow before Leon and now faced Arya with a courtly bow. "Hello, Lady Arya," he told her quietly, smiling. Now his keen gaze flicked towards the three ladies just behind Leon. He produced a courteous smile along with a second polite bow. "And greetings to you as well, my ladies." Leon cocked his head, a faint, wry smile creeping at the edge of his mouth. "Huh, Ronan, and you're the guide Arya was talking about?" "Yes, your grace." "I am," Ronan replied with his customary, unwavering composure. Leon nodded gradually, although a chuckling smile tugged at the edge of his lips. "But don't you know that we came incognito today?" Ronan dipped his head. "Yes, your grace." Leon, with amused smile and lips and folding his arms, asked, "Then tell me, Ronan, we just commoners and merchants are walking around the market with the famous owner of the Moon's Shadow Tavern. Won't that turn a few heads? Draw a bit more attention than we'd like." Ronan's smile didn't falter. "Ah, your grace, that stings a bit. You really think so little of your own, underling? I'm not a fool. That's why I brought someone more appropriate." He turned and gestured softly toward the girl standing beside him. "My daughter, Chloe, will be your guide, not me, your grace." Leon's eyes came back to the girl beside him, and then it clicked. He remembered, vaguely, from inherited memories, Ronan had a daughter. But the previous Leon never got to meet her in person. She had remained a shadow until today. Chloe stepped forward, bowing again, albeit a little deeper this time. Her voice was gentle but firm. "It is my honor to serve you and guide around in city, my lord." Leon offered her a warm smile and said gentle voice, "Then thank you, Chloe. I'll rely on your assistance today." Her heart pounded, each beat loud in her ears as his gentle smile met her gaze. She'd heard the tales everybody in Silver City had. Duke Leon Moonwalker, war hero, noble heart, brooding man of otherworldly eyes. To every young lady, he was the fairy tale prince to whom they dreamed, wished with all their heart once to get a glimpse, to catch his attention, but never did. And Chloe was no exception. And now, here he was, smiling at her, like a prince from a dream made real. In that moment, everything felt like a dream pulled out of the pages of a fairy tale. Chloe flushed faintly. "Why, yes, my lord. It would be my honor." Arya, standing silently by Leon's side, let out a gentle sigh, while gazing at Chloe, a wry smile pulling at her lips. "Another one falls," she thought with a hint of amusement. "His charm is unstoppable." She looked at Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, who, like her, had seen Chloe's subtle days and give a pity look this girl. Poor girl, Arya thought. Today won't be easy for her. Leon turned to Ronan, his voice changing to business. "Thank you, Ronan. For now, we'll start our tour of the market." "Excuse us, please." Ronan nodded and moved aside with a slight bow. "As you wish, your grace. Enjoy your day." Leon issued the command, "Ladies, let's go," and turned to Chloe. "Chloe, lead the way." "Yes, my lord." Chloe led the way, her stance elegant, but her fingers pulled nervously at her cuff. The group trailed behind her out of the alley, their footsteps light. Behind them, Captain Black and his guards faded silently into the city's shadows, already gliding unseen across rooftops and secret ways. Ronan spun and strode back toward his tavern, vanishing around a corner as if he'd never existed. And then, sunlight. As they came out of the alleyway into the midst of the market district, Leon glanced up. It was huge. Dozens of vendor stalls spilled across the cobblestone square. Colorful banners billowed above in the wind, with signs painted in every color: scarlet, gold, deep green. The smell of charred meat, baked breads, and sweet fruit filled the air. Merchants called out prices with eager grins, children laughed, and guards walked the broad avenues. People moved in every direction, weaving through stands loaded with cloth, spices, weapons, trinkets, and charms. To Leon, an earthborn spirit now within this new world, it was like entering a scene from a high-budget anime. The colors were brighter, the sounds crisper, the life more tangible. He kept his wonder behind a stoic mask, but in his mind he was awed. It was as if pieces of an old dream, brought to life in complete detail. But the others? They weren't so stoic. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra froze, eyes wide in stunned silence. Their upbringing as noble daughters had instilled in them grace, schooling, and poise, but their childhoods, far from the city, secreted away in Galvia's woods and old books, meant that they seldom, if ever, saw the pulsing life of the city. Cynthia and Kyra looked at each other, quietly drinking in the atmosphere, taking it all in with hushed wonder. But Syra, not able to contain her excitement, gasped out loud. "This is amazing. It's so noisy and bright and alive." Leon laughed at her amusement. "Yes," he said, "but it's quite vibrant with all you hear," he said in smooth and playful voice. Arya smiled at the three women, her heart melting as she saw their responses. They've never actually been exposed to this sort of crowd, have they? They grew up isolated, so they've only ever seen small towns, perhaps border crossings, but this? Her eyes scanned the bustling market. This would be like another world to them. She nodded to herself, a gentle smile still on her lips as she looked at Leon. "So, what do you think we should get for the princess?" she said, her voice contemplative but light. Leon hesitated. "I don't know." He looked at her. "Do you have any ideas?" Arya rolled her eyes with an exaggerated sigh. "Sometimes you talk as though you understand women better than everyone else in the world. At other times, you turn downright useless when women are involved." Leon stood up, half indignant, but also entertained. "Really?" Arya smiled tauntingly, her voice light but full of mischief. "Leave it," she said, dusting off the remark. "I expected as much. So, I already had an idea for the present. We can go for a necklace, or perhaps a magical object, something refined and practical." Leon smiled, his eyes relaxing as he admired her foresight. "Well, that does sound more in keeping with what we require," he replied with a teasing smile. Leon moved around to Chloe, who had been silently listening to their exchange, but whose eyes locked on him with a stunned admiration. "Chloe," Leon said softly, his voice snapping her out of her reverie. She blinked, startled, as if coming back to awareness. "Why, yes, my lord. You said you had knowledge of the top shops in the city. Do you know where we would find great jewelry or magical goods?" Her eyes widened with understanding, and she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, indeed. The Black Gold Company has the finest reputation in the city for both fine enchanted goods and mastercraft jewelry." Leon smiled. "Perfect. Let's go there." Chloe nodded briskly. "This way, please." They trailed behind as she escorted them onto the busy main street, where pedestrians slowed to gawk. As they emerged onto the main street, the world about them came to a halt. Leon, tall, elegant, and innately graceful even in his humble black robe, naturally attracted attention. And standing beside him, Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra moved like visions from a dream, each a kind of beauty. Pedestrians couldn't help but gawk. Some spoke in hushed tones, others stopped in their tracks, some just stood by silently. No yelling or cussing ensued, only the heavy burden of curiosity and adoration in every look. Leon experienced it all. The notice grazed his perception like a zephyr, but he declined to pay heed to it, keeping his gaze in front and his stride unbroken. He had grown accustomed to this sort of suspicion, so he decides to ignore this and continue walking. The ladies were not strangers to glances. Their beauty had long attracted notice wherever they stepped. Wherever they stepped, they attracted glances of strangers. It was almost routine. So, when passers-by in the market turned to look, it didn't surprise them. The attention stirred a flicker of discomfort, but never enough to break their practiced poise. They had long since learned to carry themselves with quiet dignity, to wear their beauty like a veil of confidence. Ignoring the attention wasn't difficult. It was second nature. But Chloe's feet skipped a step because the burden of dozens of eyes came crashing down on her. The hum of the market disappeared under the beat of her own heart. She flushed with color as she let her eyes drop, searing herself with the attention. She wasn't accustomed to this. Not to the gazes, not to the whispers, not to walking beside a man like Leon, whose presence alone turned heads, let alone when surrounded by such stunning women. Unconsciously, she edged closer to Leon, attracted to his calm like a drifting ship to a lighthouse. It was subtle, instinctive, but Leon noticed. Leon noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers curled and uncurled nervously. Gently, he leaned in, his voice quiet and smooth, like warm silk over frayed nerves. "Chloe," he said softly to make her ease, "don't be nervous. They're only staring because you're beautiful. Take it as a compliment." She blinked, taken aback by the gentleness in his tone. Her heart stuttered, a breath caught in her throat. She eased her tension within herself slowly, looking up at him, his serene smile, gentle eyes, and relaxed. Chloe smiled shyly and nodded. "Yes, my lord. Thank you." Her voice shook, but her steps became more confident. Leon smiled, not knowing that at his back, Arya and the others shared knowing glances, each of them silently exhaling in amusement. And as they walked on, vendors shouted with fresh vegetables, fruits, and roasted meats. The aroma of spices blended with street food drew Syra, noticeably attracted to street food good smell. She gestured, "That smells so good." But before she was able to get out her words, Kyra softly interrupted. "Syra," she said softly, with a subtle hint of warning. But Leon picked up on Syra's reaction. He smiled lightly and spoke to Syra. "It's okay. When we finish shopping, you can eat as much as you like." "Really?" He nodded. "I promise." And then, after navigating through 2 more streets, they came to a big, dark stone building with silver doors and a black sigil inscribed above the door. Black Gold Company. The building stood tall and firm at the plaza's edge. Large windows shone, showcasing enchanted rings, amulets, crystals, and glittering fabrics. Leon gazed up at the sign, then at Chloe. "Well done," he said. Chloe smiled bashfully. And so, they walked toward the door, ready to discover a gift worthy of royalty. The Black Gold Company. The group stopped in front of a large building set back along one of the market's busiest streets. Over them, a giant obsidian sign creaked, shining like a polished mirror, its golden letters tastefully spelling, Black Gold Company. In contrast to the frenzied energy of the surrounding vendors and crowds, this was peaceful and still, almost menacing in its serenity, a temple of wealth in the midst of the chaos. The edifice rose tall and imposing, its walls made of gleaming black marble, its rim outlined with shining golden trim. Large, shaded windows shone softly in the sunlight, and the double doors, made of lacquered wood, stood tall, framed in shining iron. 2 guards in armor stood at attention, spears tightly held, their sharp-eyed gazes scanning the area. Their matching steel armor, polished to a mirror finish, left no doubt that they were no ordinary guards. These were battle-hardened warriors, paid not just to keep troubles at bay, but to guarantee that only professionals could gain entry. Cyrus gasped, eyes wide. "Lord, this palace is incredible." Cynthia, just as awed, nodded. "Indeed, Lord." Kyra offered a crisp, approving nod, her eyes running over the building like a seasoned tactician, always assessing. Arya smiled, hands folded behind her back. "If your sightseeing is complete, maybe we should go inside now." Leon smiled gently, nodding. "Yeah, let's go." Chloe, quiet and intent, guided the group towards the gate. As they approached the Black Gold Company, the 2 guards immediately noticed, their keen eyes focusing on the group. It wasn't their faces the guards looked at first, it was their attire. The plain-cut, coarse fabrics they wore may have identified them as merchants or commoners to the naked eye, but the guards weren't deceived. The quality of the material, the exact tailoring, the way they stood, it all told a story. The guards' eyes narrowed, evaluating. They weren't searching for individuals. They were examining for threats, buyers, or fakes. The unspoken tension between them was thick as they sized up whether these impeccably dressed individuals were real or merely time wasters seeking a glimpse of opulence. When Leon and the women at last arrived at the towering gates, one of the guards advanced, his movements slow and deliberate. His eyes were cold and unyielding, his voice gravelly as he said, "No trouble within. If you make any, be prepared to pay the price." Leon kept his cool. He recognized this kind of guard, trained to keep riffraff out. He didn't hold them against themselves for their attitude. They were only doing their work. He smiled graciously, bowing his head in silent agreement. But not everyone accepted Guard's words so easily. Arya's eyes fell into a glare, her jaw clenching against the Guard's bitter words lingering on the air. She flexed her fist beside her, nails biting into her glove. How dare they talk to him like that? He wasn't any man. He was Duke Leon Moonwalker. If only they understood who was in front of them. Her heart seethed with silent anger, but she choked it back. Not now. Not here. He had asked for a quiet day at the market. He didn't ask for a scene. And on his behalf, she compelled herself to breathe deeply and allow the fire to smolder in silence inside. Chloe frowned as well, but noticing Arya and Leon kept quiet, she did as well. However, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, they did not have that kind of restraint. For Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, Leon wasn't just a man. He was their lord, the chosen of their goddess, the one destined to stand as her equal and their own future husband. But beyond titles or prophecy, he was the man who invited them in, made them feel better, made them feel like they are new members in his clan. And how? It rang out subtly like the sound of ice breaking through beneath them, as Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra released their auras. It was not hectic or explosive. It was trained, intent, and cutting like a blade that has been unsheathed with silence. That which came behind, in terms of pressure, was intense and constricting. The guards stumbled beneath the weight of an unseen pressure, centered on the two men, a killer's focus on prey. Their breathing shallowed, knees shaking beneath the raw power of killing intent closing in from every direction. Both relinquished his spear with a clang. The other clenched his teeth, but the perspiration streaming down his forehead betrayed the terror he attempted to hide. Cynthia advanced, her eyes softly glowing, her voice cold but even. "How? Could you talk to our lord like that?" she said, every word blade. "You want to die, little punks?" The market entrance fell silent. Even Leon and Arya sensed the abrupt change, tension like a tempest ready to unleash itself. Leon acted fast, inserting himself between them, his being tranquil but firm. "Cynthia, Kyra, Syra," he said softly yet firmly, "withdraw your aura." The three women looked at Leon, surprised, caught off guard by the soft command behind his smile. He stood calmly, eyes warm, voice smooth as silk. "We came here to enjoy ourselves," he said, his tone light but steady. "No need for conflict. They're just doing their job." A beat passed. Realizing their error, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra looked at each other. Reluctantly, slowly, they pulled back their auras, drawing back the suffocating power like a knife being sheathed at the very last moment. The result was immediate. The two guards fell to their knees, panting for breath. Their faces were ghostly pale, dripping with sweat, as if they had just gazed into the face of death itself and emerged barely alive. Leon turned to them with a gentle, gentleman's smile. "Sorry," he said with kindness. "My friends can be a bit overprotective for me. Don't take it personally." The guards gazed at him in amazement. They had never experienced such imposing presence. And now this fellow was speaking kindly and even smiling? Then Leon took out a pouch from within his coat and flung it gently to them. "Here, take this as payment." The pouch thudded into the guard's hand. Leon looked around at Chloe and the others. "Let's go in." When the group stepped into the shop, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra all quickly turned back, shooting the guards a quick but frightening glare. The door closed behind them. The guards heaved a heavy sigh. "WH, who were they?" One guard breathed, his chest heaving like he'd been running a marathon. Sweat dripped off his forehead, burning his eyes. The other remained silent. Shaking, he swiped his brow, then realized what he held in his hand. A little leather pouch. He hadn't even noticed the man had thrown it to him. He opened it slowly, and went still. His eyes widened, full moons round. Gold, not coins. Dozens. The first guard noticed his face. "Hey, what's in there?" he panted. The second didn't say a word. He just gave the pouch over, fixed on a route Leon and his friends walked down, now gone into the imposing building. The first guard looked inside. His breath was caught. Gold coins. Gotta be 500 gold in here. The second finally breathed. "Wow, what?" The first guard's jaw hung open. 500. A family could live in comfort for 3 generations on that. The other nodded slowly, still fixed on the now empty gate. They didn't even flinch. Didn't argue. Just left this. The pouch weighed heavier now, heavier than gold. It weighed heavier with something else. Power. Influence. "Who the hell are they?" The first muttered, voice hollow with awe. The second whispered back, almost to himself. "And where? Where did they come from?" The 2 men stood there in awestruck silence, the pouch gripped tight between them, the gold within shining like stars dropped from another planet. Within the Black Gold Company, the mood shifted the instant they entered. The air was crisp, scented lightly with foreign spices and magical oils. The floor was a shiny dark stone, highly polished. Golden designs glimmered dimly beneath their feet. Lines of glass display cases ran along the aisles and walls, each one holding rare magical items, shining gems, enchanted trinkets, and jewelry appropriate for four-leg elegance and nobility and status symbol. Suspended magical golden lamps cast warm, constant light on the treasures. Maids with spotless uniforms glided among exhibits, cleaning the cases to maintain their cleanliness. Soothing instrumental music floated in the background, an air of magic to reassure customers and concentrate their minds. At the far end of the room, behind a luxurious blackwood desk inlaid with crimson runes, a man sat absorbed in a scroll. He appeared to be in his middle years, with slick-back hair, smooth robes, and a keen, watchful eye. Magical scrolls hovered above him, and tiny enchanted objects floated quietly around his work area. As they entered, a white-robed male attendant stepped forward with impeccable posture and professional smile. He bowed low over chest with his hand. "Welcome to the Black Gold Company," he greeted with elegance. "How can I help you, esteemed guests?" The Black Gold Company Part 2. With the group proceeding into the ornate Black Gold Company, gentle illumination from suspending magical lanterns lit the elegant stride. A white attendant, robe-clad male attendant proceeded to step ahead, his demeanor flawless, face holding a shiny professional smile. Hand over his chest, he bowed low. "Welcome to the Black Gold Company," he uttered with plain sophistication. "How can I serve you, noble guests?" The abrupt voice of attendant shattered the quiet reflections hovering between the group. Leon, who had been regarding the shimmering exhibits along the wall, turned his eyes towards the attendant. His eyes were unruffled, unwavering. The attendant was a thin man in his early 30s, with well-parted hair and a crystal service badge pinned above his chest. Every detail about him screamed trained refinement. Leon gave him a courteous smile. "I've heard that your shop offers the best magical ornaments and jewelry in all of Silver City," he said. "So, we've come here to buy something special." Leon offered a warm, courteous smile. "I've heard your shop carries the finest magical ornaments and jewelry in Silver City," he said, his tone both polite and curious. "We've come to find something special today." The attendant's stance relaxed a fraction, pride shining through in his gaze. "You heard correctly, sir. Our collection is unparalleled. Rare enchantments, skilled craftsmanship, all selected with care." Leon nodded pensively. The attendant's tone continued silky and professional. "If I might inquire, what kind of magical item are you looking for? Rings, amulets, something for protection, or is it a gift with significance?" Leon's gaze flicked toward Arya, subtle but meaningful. She noticed instantly and stepped forward, her presence poised and confident. With a soft clear of her throat, she spoke in a voice that carried quiet authority. "We're looking for something elegant," she said. "Refined but not simple. Beautiful with dignity. It should reflect both grace and strength." Her words hung in the air like a command wrapped in silk. The attendant, clearly impressed, bowed respectfully again. Yes, ma'am. I think we have a collection that will appeal to your taste exactly. Please, let me show you to our collections. The attendant took them to a long, gleaming side counter. The black glass glowed under enchanted globes suspended above, sending soft golden light like sunbeams trapped in motionless air. Under the glass, lines of jewelry glowed with subtle power. Fine silver chains studded with shining gems, pendants inscribed with runes of clarity, and brooches that throbbed softly like small beating hearts. With great pride, the attendant said, voice smooth as silk, I present our premier display. Each piece here is a masterpiece of both enchantment and craft. He gestured toward a locket shaped like a swirl of moonlight frozen in silver. This one enhances mental focus, favored by spellcasters, scholars, and sages of high standing. It clears the mind, sharpens thought. He moved his hand to another piece, a delicate golden pendant in the form of a vine, curling around blue mana crystals. This gently cultivates the wearer's life force. It's usually given to healers or adventurers heading into the wilds. Leon leaned forward, his eyes following every line, every rune. The workmanship was exquisite, well-balanced lines, flawless finish, power infused into every thread of gold and silver. But his face was still serene, unmoved. These are stunning, he said, low and even voice. But they look like they need to be gawked at, not worn. The attendant blinked, taken aback. Sir, they're gorgeous, Leon went on, but they don't have presence. No history, no voice, just ornamentation. Arya, standing behind him, crossed her arms, eyes scrunched up. He's right. They glitter, but they don't unique. Cynthia traced the rim of a red ring and withdrew. They possess magic, but no significance. And also, they're too ordinary. Kyra nodded sharply, and Syra's eyes rested upon a glinting choker. She dipped her head. They don't seem to have life. The rest went on studying the pieces contemplatively in silence. Arya drummed her finger on a rune-inscribed bracelet, her brow knit. Cynthia examined a pair of sapphire earrings coolly. None of them said anything more, but their silence explained a lot. Chloe, on the other hand, lingered somewhat behind them, her eyes flicking between the jewelry and Leon. A private corner of her simply wanted to know what he liked. Leon finally exhaled and backed away from the display. They just don't fit what I'm searching for, he said quietly, but with a hint of disappointment. His voice dropped, more to himself than to anyone else. Nothing here feels right. He turned to the attendant. Then maybe you don't have anything better? The attendant stiffened slightly, obviously flustered. Before he could complete, a booming, deep voice sliced through the hall, reverberating off the high shining walls. You worthless punk. You can't even deal with noble clients. Get out of the way. Everyone spun as the sound of heavy, hurried footsteps echoed across the marble floor. A flushed, round man in a close embroidered coat hurried toward them, jeweled rings on almost every finger flashing. His belly bulged against the buttons of his velvet waistcoat, and a gold chain thick as his wrist bumped with each stride. Although his face was wreathed in courtesy, his eyes revealed the fear behind. Distinguished visitors, he started, voice honeyed but a little winded. He made a perfunctory bow, deep enough to imply deference without endangering equilibrium. Forgive my staff's unfortunate ineptness. He stood up, wiping the sweat from his forehead with a ring-laden hand. I'm Torvin, the manager of this Silver City office of the Black Gold Company. What do you require? Honored guest, and I will personally see to it. When Torvin first saw Leon's group from his desk, he almost let the scroll fall from his fingers. It was their appearance at first glance that took him aback. The man in the middle, tall, elegant, and so strikingly handsome he could compare to a royal prince, stood with effortless authority. 5 women glided around him, each emitting a unique, compelling grace. One strode like a warrior, another with the poise of an aristocrat. each distinct, each unforgettable. Even the reserved girl in the back, her eyes cast down and steps subdued, had an aura Torvin couldn't help but notice, an allure that was not of show, but of quiet. But it wasn't their good looks alone that paralyzed him. Torvin's practiced gaze swept over the group. Their robes, while humble in style, were cut from fabric so rich he knew only the richest could afford them. Their stance was regal, but not arrogant, their movement silent, but authoritative. The manner in which they looked around the room, measured, perceptive, and without doubt, told him more than looks ever could. He had run this shop for more than 20 years. He had seen countless lords, ministers, ambassadors, and rich merchants. But none of them had ever made his instincts howl the way these strangers did. These were not regular customers. These were individuals who had experienced things, accomplished things. Individuals who were accustomed to being followed, rather than convinced. Torvin rose slowly, heart beating faster. He ironed out his coat, shifted his rings, and emerged from behind his desk. His gut sensed that what followed might alter more than the result of a sale and gain of this branch. "I noticed the attendant taking you through our display," Torvin said warily, fingers laced in front of him as he approached. "But it seems you weren't impressed with our collection." Leon's eyes shifted to him, cool, expressionless. "They were impressive," Leon said flatly, "but not what we seek." Torvin leaned his head to one side. "May I inquire as to what, exactly, you were looking for?" Leon didn't delay. "A necklace," he stated, "but not a bauble for the commoners. Something extraordinary, elegant, noble, rare." Torvin's murmured in heart. As I expected, he considered. This is no easy buy for mere ornamentation. They're looking for something special with uniqueness. Nevertheless, he maintained his tone silky. "Professional. We do have such works, sir," he replied. "But I must point out, the series you're looking at is our top level. Made by master craftsmen, some are originals. Of course, their value is commensurate." His gaze traveled around the group, looking for even the barest hint of offense, outrage, or wavering. There was none. Leon smiled weakly, his voice cool but playful. "Money is not the issue. Quality and meaning are what's important." Torvin experienced a shiver of awareness. These were not clients to be underestimated, of course. He exclaimed hastily, bending low. "Then let me take you on a tour few are ever given." Leon nodded once. "Proceed." Relief flickered across Torvin's face, quickly replaced by polished poise. "Then if you be so kind, this way, sir," he said, bowing slightly. He moved with brisk precision, leading them past the gleaming front counter and through a discreet archway veiled by a curtain of deep crimson velvet. The fabric whispered as it parted behind him, revealing a narrow spiral staircase carved from polished blackstone. Leon stopped at the bottom, his gaze tightening slightly. His eyes swept up, not suspiciously, but thoughtful curiosity. He still didn't say anything. Torvin saw the look and smiled reassuringly. "It's a private gallery," he said and motioned upwards. "Reserved for only those who really look for rarity." And begin walk upstairs. Leon nodded slightly and started up the steep stairs, his footsteps firm and silent on the blackstone steps. The others were close behind. Arya glided like a ghost, arms folded, her keen eyes taking in every detail. Kyra followed, just behind, one hand resting loosely near the concealed dagger hidden in the inner lining of her robe. Cynthia and Syra moved in flawless silence, their steps elegant, but tension laced their poise. Alert, inscrutable, unafraid, ready, always. Chloe trailed behind, her steps a fraction slower. She looked between the twisting stairwell and Leon in front, her gaze querying, more concerned with the man's brooding intensity than the jewels they were here for. They moved up in silence. At the top, the stairs gave way to a peaceful corridor filled with the soft light of golden lamps. Magical flameless orbs suspended in sconces that resembled blossoming lilies. The floor below them was covered in a rich red velvet carpet, and high curtains of the same material lined the walls, gently swaying as if they had been stirred by the breath of ghosts. Then they saw the guards. 6 of them stood in line along the corridor, black-armored, faceless, as unmoving as statues. Their spears glowed dimly in the magical illumination, crossed over their chests in trained readiness. The group's response was universal. No flinch. No word. Nothing but the subtle tightening of Arya's eyes, the lean of Kyra's head, and a fleeting dart of Syra's glance to the nearest guard. Calm, controlled, unfazed, Torvin witnessed it all and was silently amazed. Even my top guards don't make them blink, he considered. These aren't aristocratic dilettantes. These are dangerous. But he swallowed hard and gave a courteous smile. We have things of value on this floor, he said to preclude any misunderstanding. The guards are for security. Leon nodded. Understandable. They came to the end of the hall, where a double door towered above them. Torvin pushed it open, and the group stepped into a gold-lit private showroom. A gigantic crystal chandelier dangled from above. Velvet drapes lined the walls. The floor was slick polished marble, and padded seats sat in stately corners. And then they noticed them. Jewels, ornaments, rings, enchanted talismans, each preserved in radiant glass vials. Runes glowed softly on every piece. Some emitted flame, others ice, one vibrated with air, and one even beat in rhythm with the heartbeat. But not a word was said by any of the group. Leon's gaze didn't stay on any single piece for long, because at the opposite end of the room, illuminated under a concentrated magical light, stood a single pedestal wrapped in crystal glass. And in it, something glimmered. He crept slowly forward. The women trailed after him, their eyes hard. No one spoke. A stillness filled with tension thickened with each step Leon took towards the display, his eyes catching the shimmer, glowing now with the kindlings of something deep. The twin treasures of Allure. Leon's gaze crept steadily, with conscious tranquility. Never once did he pause on the jewels. Ornaments, rings, enchanted talismans, each wrapped in shining glass vials on pedestals standing throughout the room, whatever unusual or lustrous they might have appeared. His eye, like a hunter sighting game through a thicket, settled on a solitary pedestal in the depths of the room. It stood bathed in a thin beam of concentrated magical light, the crystal cover over it glimmering like moon-frosted ice. He moved forward without speaking. Every step he took was measured, almost kingly. His pace was neither hurried nor slow. It bore a poised, measured weight, as if attracted by something beyond curiosity. His cloak rustled faintly behind him with every silent step, the heavy velvet brushing against the marble. The females in his company, Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, Syra, and Chloe, saw his change at once. While they had been studying the other exhibits, they turned to Leon as he strode towards the middle of the showroom. Arya shot him a tight, questioning gaze. Cynthia cocked her head to one side, intrigued. Kyra's hand wandered to her side, a silent movement born not of trepidation, but silent curiosity. Syra stiffened, observing him intently. Chloe, a couple of paces behind, trailed his route with wide eyes, silently enthralled as he approached the middle of the room. Leon halted a mere 3 meters from the pedestal. He stood there in silent stillness, hands clasped behind his back, and gazed into the crystal case. His face was unreadable, as if he is studying something. Then a small, wry curve brushed the edge of his lips. It wasn't mockery. It was admiration. Profound, wordless admiration. The expression of a man who had at last discovered something worthy of admiration. A necklace rested in the case, elegant, exquisite, unlike any other. It glowed with the sheen of dusk. Silver strands, as thin as spider silk, woven into a fragile mesh that encircled a teardrop gem of rich purple. The gem glowed softly, as if it breathed. It was nestled in a cage of golden ivy, the leaves etched down to the veins. Its aura was warm, mysterious, and quietly noble. Behind it, a little higher at the back of the case, lay its twin. The second necklace was as beautifully crafted as the first. Only its thread shone with dusk gold, and its gem had a peaceful, shining blue, like a lake under the full moon. The necklaces complemented each other, a balance of dawn and dusk, yin and yang, strength and peace. The women slowly convened around Leon, each trapped in a trance as they gazed at the twin pieces. Arya's eyes opened wide in wonder, a glint of admiration in her eyes. Cynthia tilted her head to one side, observing the pieces sharply. Kyra parted her lips just a little, hypnotized by the fine details. Syra just stood there, hypnotized. Chloe watched in muted amazement, fascinated by their loveliness. Behind them, Torvin stood transfixed at the doorway, his eyes bulging with wonder. They had proceeded directly to the most elite jewels, ignoring dozens of breathtaking pieces as if they were nothing. But he set the thought aside for the moment, and he hurried toward them, bowing in mid-stride, his voice echoing out with gasping admiration. "Distinguished guests," he said, standing a few paces back, "you very much have the eyes of hawks, perceiving the rarest treasure by a single look." Leon's smile was weak but appreciative. When something makes itself so clear, it does not have to scream. These two pieces, his attention went back to the necklaces, do not melt into the sea. That was what caught me. Torvin nodded, his breath caught in his throat. "Your taste is impeccable, sir." Arya moved forward, her tone low and icy. "They have elegance and command." Syra added with a quiet murmur, "They seem eternal." Cynthia and Kyra both nodded softly, their faces solemn, mesmerized. And Chloe just whispered to herself in her heart, "They're beautiful, like him." Leon shifted half an inch away from him, still not removing his gaze from the case. "So, Mr. Timeless." Cynthia and Kyra shared silent nods, their expressions stern, obviously entranced. Chloe, her heart racing, whispered to herself, "They're gorgeous, just like him." Leon shifted slightly, his attention unbroken from the case. "Mr. Torvin," he stated, his tone even but inquiring, "tell us about these two necklaces." Torvin inhaled slowly, his voice becoming deeper with drama. "A tale to tell, sir," he answered, moving in with an air of intrigue. He moved in towards the glass, respectfully bringing his hands down as if he was talking about exquisite necklace. "These," Torvin started, his voice growing deeper with awe, "are the twin necklaces of Valor, smelted not in the Moonstone Kingdom, but in the adjacent kingdom of Valor, land of mist-shrouded mountains and soul-graced rivers. Valor is famous for its skilled artisans and beautiful accessories. And these two items, created by the hands of twin artisans, Ilaire and Irona Valet, are the best of their craft." He nodded to each of the necklaces. "The purple gem is for illumination from darkness, and the blue for calm in the midst of a storm. It's purported that the craftsmen were dedicating their souls to these pieces, each twin working on her counterpart with painstaking devotion and attention to detail. These twin necklaces are one of a kind worldwide." Leon's eyes sparkled, the appreciation growing. The rest of them remained silent, transfixed by the story. After a moment, Leon's voice broke the spell. "Fascinating. So, tell me, Mr. Torvin." He turned, face calm, composed. "What is the price of both?" The question slammed into Torvin like a thunderclap. His face contorted. "Both?" he whispered, his eyes wide with incredulity. Is he joking? His heart racing in his chest. He had thought the man would purchase a single piece, perhaps even ask for a single price. But now he was asking for both. If he knew how much it cost, perhaps he wouldn't have asked for both. Leon leaned forward. "Mr. Torvin?" Yes, sir, I apologize. I didn't catch what you said." Leon's tone stayed indifferent. "I asked," he said softly, "the cost of both necklaces." The silence loomed in the air, dense and charged. Torvin's hands shook a little as he cleared his throat. "Respected sir," he started, voice anxious, "these are works of art, soul-bound, unique pieces crafted by Valor's finest artisans." Before he could proceed, Leon held up a hand, indicating that he should stop. "Just quote the price," Leon said quietly but firmly. Arya's eyes were steady, but her gaze betrayed a tiny spark of shock at the figure. Cynthia's mouth opened in surprise, her brow furrowed as she took in the figure. Kyra's face set hard, disbelief flashing across it, while Syra's lips pursed in silent surprise. Chloe's heart was racing, eyes widening as she stared at the outrageous sum of money, her expression one of wonder and unbelief. As the shockwaves ran through them, Leon remained unruffled, his collected tone never faltering. "I see," he replied, tone smooth. Leon faced Arya, tone smooth. "Would you say that these would make the ultimate gift?" Arya hesitated for an instant, her eyes locked on the necklaces. She nodded after a slight pause. "Yes, perfect." He turned to look at Cynthia, Syra, and Kyra next. All three women nodded gravely, their faces still in the process of absorbing the price, but ultimately consenting with Arya's appraisal. Then Leon's focus moved on to Chloe. She froze, caught off guard by the attention focused on her. "Why is he looking at me?" Her thoughts whirled in confusion. "He's a duke, surely. He doesn't need my opinion. I'm just a subordinate, the daughter." Before she could further spiral, Leon's voice cut through her thoughts. "Chloe." His tone was gentle, yet expectant. "What do you think of the necklaces?" Chloe jumped, her face turning a deep red as her mind went haywire. She hastily raised her hand, stuttering in a nervous, flustered tone. I don't know, Lord Leon." Leon's eyebrow shot up, his eyes piercing but serene. What do you mean by I don't know? Or are you telling me you don't like these necklaces?" Chloe's eyes went wide, panic rising within her. "And no, I mean, they're beautiful, outstanding, exquisite." Leon smiled gently, his voice warm and reassuring. Then good." Torvin stood there rigidly nearby, sweat pooling under his collar. Leon's gaze turned to him. "Mr. Torvin, consider them bought." A pause. Torvin's eyes were fixed on him. Then he blinked. Not only Torvin, but the women with him were just as shocked, their faces wide with incredulity. Arya, the ever-serene one, couldn't conceal the flash of shock in her eyes. As Leon's former head maid and the manager of the finances for the estate, she understood perfectly well just how large that sum was. 600,000 gold coins. Her brain functioned rapidly, doing calculations. That's almost the entire cost of the yearly maintenance for the Moonwalker estate. All, the staff, maintenance, utilities, and security, it all cost that much for the entire year. The shock was strong. For a person to spend so much on 2 necklaces, it was beyond her normal reach of extravagance. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra were similarly disturbed. 600,000 gold coins was unimaginable to them, particularly when they considered their current condition with their tribes in ruins. Their tribes had contented themselves with yearly outlays of 10 to 20,000 gold coins at the most, expenses incurred for their people's necessities for subsistence. To witness such a great amount discarded so nonchalantly into the air, wasted on 2 trinkets, was disconcerting. That could feed an entire community for a year, Kyra considered, or rebuild half of our lost territories. Syra's eyes were wide, her mind reeling at the enormity of the figure. How many cities could operate for years on such an amount? She pondered, her eyes darting between the necklaces and Leon. She'd never seen so much carefree disregard for money before. But it was Chloe who experienced the brunt of it. Her heart raced, her mind in overdrive. That number, that's greater than the Silver City's yearly revenue. Chloe swallowed hard. "I know about the Silver City, its riches, how much it earned and spent annually, and yet this one purchase. It was more than one city's income, and yet Leon was moving as if purchasing bread and flowers from a street stall. The magnitude of it was crushing her. The silence hung heavy, everyone's minds weighed down by the magnitude of the sum. Torvin finally blinked, his shock clear. He hadn't anticipated such a reaction, his face now growing even bizarre. "I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat that?" he stuttered, hardly able to believe his ears. Leon's amused by Torvin look didn't alter. "I said, I'm buying both necklaces." Torvin's knees almost buckled. "You're not joking, sir?" Leon leaned his head to one side, his face calm, but with a cutting intensity to his eyes. "Do I look like I'm joking?" he demanded, a very hint of humor in his tone. "No, no, sir. Naturally not," stammered Torvin, his breathing thin, his mind in turmoil. Who was this man? Torvin thought, the enormity of the situation settling in. To spend this amount of gold, more than most nobles could dream of, without a second thought, in a single heartbeat, for a gift. Then Leon's eyes ran over the women on either side of him, each face still etched with shock, their minds obviously trying to grasp the enormity of what they had just witnessed. A faint smile danced within his eyes as he watched them. Their shocked faces still hung in the air like a collective, wordless question. Something flashed in his eyes, a flash of an idea, a flicker of thought taking shape. He wheeled around to Torvin, face impassive, but the lightest smile creased his lips. "Mr. Torvin," he murmured, tone silky and inquiring. "I was wondering if you might help me with one more thing." Torvin's heart accelerated, mind whirling with curiosity and anxiety and thought and heart. What now? A gift for every heart. Then Leon glanced around once more at the women who stood by him. Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, Syra, and, standing a little aside from them, Chloe. His eyes traveled slowly over their faces. Something kindled in his eyes, an idea, gentle but swift, like a spark flaring in the stillness of his mind. He turned to Torvin, his smile almost impossible to read, but unmistakably captivating. "Mr. Torvin," he stated, voice steady and smooth as silk, "I was hoping you could help me with one additional thing." Torvin blinked in reaction to the shift in tone. "Why, yes, sir," he replied, straightening involuntarily. "What is it you need?" Leon's eyes shifted back to the women, and his tone became laced with playfulness. "You notice the lovelies surrounding me?" Torvin glanced around the room. Arya, graceful and regal. Cynthia, calm and composed. Kyra, reserved and elegant. Syra, cheerful and warm. And Chloe, modest and quiet. He bowed respectfully. "Yes, sir. Very much so." Leon smiled and started to say, "They are mine," but cut himself off. His voice stammered. For a moment, something flashed through his eyes as he gazed at them all. His connection with most of the women was still fresh, except with Arya. So, he cleared his throat and revised his statement. "They're my near and dears. Therefore, I would like to gift each one of them a gift. Something that befits their beauty." There was a stunned silence that followed. Arya's eyes grew wide, and she half-stepped forward. "Darling, I don't need a gift. Your presence suffices." Cynthia repeated softly, "Yes, Lord. I am content just to serve at your side. That is all I wish for." Kyra nodded. "We follow you not for reward or gift, but because we wish to follow you." Syra, always the candid one, smiled bashfully. "I don't want a gift either, but if you buy me street food like you said you would, then that's fine by me." She laughed cutely, her voice punctuated with innocence and love. Every one of the women's answers were unique, but the same emotion bound them all together: love. And still, Chloe said nothing. She stood a step behind the others, her hands gently clasped before her, heart quietly aching. He said he wanted to give each of them a gift. "But surely that doesn't include me," she thought, the words pressing down like weight on her chest. "I'm not a noble, not a warrior, not radiant and beautiful like woman around him. I'm just the daughter of a subordinate, a commoner." Her eyes fell to the ground, lashes concealing the soft flutter in her gaze. Why should a duke look at someone such as me? Bitterness struggled to establish itself, but another thought battled through. Even assuming I'm worth more, it's idiotic. He's already shown me compassion nobles never would. That is more than I ever dare to hope. She had witnessed other nobles and their treatment of commoners, condescending, cold, as if dust beneath their heels. But him? He regarded me with respect, as a human being, and for her, that was sufficient. Leon heard their sincere refusals, Arya's gentle protest, Cynthia's silent loyalty, Kyra's firm devotion, and Syra's innocent honesty, with a faint smile playing at the edge of his lips. Their sincerity touched him but only briefly. Then he let out a harsh breath and waved a hand. "Just shut up, okay?" he said abruptly. The words hovered on the air like a ripple in smooth water. His voice wasn't mean, though, teasing, playfully so, and yet firm with affection. "It's my present. If any of you do not accept it, I shall be very sad." He even pouted, grotesquely lowering his brows and puffing out his cheeks, as if he were the wronged one. Arya blinked, then laughed, truly and gently, her eyes aglow with love. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra all looked at one another and smiled. He had turned the mood on its head with no effort at all, as though grief had never ventured into the room. How is he doing this? Cynthia asked herself, persuading us so easily, always putting us first before himself. And we don't even know him long enough. Leon smiled contentedly as he noticed their softened faces. Initially, he had been here to purchase something grand, something befitting a queen or a princess. But then, having noticed the lovely necklaces, he understood. He had never really given any present to the women around him. Arya, his little cute wifey here, and Rhys, his little seductress, who was waiting in the capital. Both were his wives in all aspects. And Cynthia, Kyra, Syra, who had marched behind him through fire and destiny, were bound to tread the same path as Arya and Rhys. They too would one day be his wives. They were already his family in his heart. Then why not purchase something for them, too? Poor thing, standing so still, not wanting to call attention to herself. So humble, so kind. She had worked today as a guide, yes, but she was better than that. His heart constricted. As a gentleman, as a flirt, he couldn't make her feel like she was being left behind. And anyway, another gift wouldn't harm his purse, but it might do enough to light her heart. That, he thought, was worth more than any consideration. He looked back at Torvin once more, who stood quietly observing the scene, his respect increasing moment by moment. Love in Galvia was not always bound by station or birth. Not for all the nobles, at least, but among commoners and merchant classes, love was holy. It was the lifeblood of many ancient myths and night stories, where even kings fell for seamstresses and soldiers wept for flower girls. Lost in the daydream, Torvin blinked as Leon's eyes met his once more. He came back to himself, a newfound respect in his gaze. "Mr. Torvin," Leon stated, voice even and smooth. "Why, yes, sir." Torvin replied hastily, his tone now more respectful, with a slight, genuine smile. "I was wondering if you have something appropriate for these women, each one unique." Torvin grinned. "Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, just the other day we received a very special collection, a series of hairpieces. If you would permit me?" Leon nodded once, his curiosity piqued. Torvin clapped his hands twice, and 2 guards in armor entered the room. He nodded briefly to them. "Bring in the collection from yesterday," he said. The guards bowed together and exited without a word. The room was plunged into a silent anticipation. A few moments later, the guards reappeared, coming out a side corridor. One of them held a velvet-covered box, while the other 2 pushed a polished wooden table. They set it down softly in front of Torvin, who moved towards the box with respect. He opened it slowly, showing its contents. Leon and the women hunched forward as one, their eyes open in awe. In the box lined with velvet were 9 magnificent hairpieces, each different in color and pattern, but all with a shared beauty. They seemed like siblings, all born out of the same masterstroke of artistry. Leon's eyes grew sharper, a subdued admiration smoldering in his heart. Even the best earth craftsmanship couldn't match this. His mind wandered for an instant, recalling dozens of luxury commercials, but none had ever left him this amazed. Alaire and Irona Valet, Torvin explained proudly, are the same twin sisters' artisanal works who created this collection too from the Valor kingdom. Leon smiled gently as he gazed at the hairpiece, his eyes full of gentle wonder as he continued to study the collection. Each piece testified to a meticulous, gentle hand, wrought with an artistry that left him breathless. He nodded in appreciation and then, with careful hands, Leon grasped the first piece, a lavender-purple hairpiece, an orchid-shaped flower of delicate beauty, with a moonstone resting at its center. The work was stunning, exuding elegance and an otherworldly sheen, as if it contained a secret enchantment within its petals. He made his way towards Arya, who stood with a serene smile, her eyes gentle and brimming with warmth. When he put the hairpiece into her purple locks gently, it rested in a place just right, like it was specially created for her, an easy fit to her looks. Leon, with a wave of his fingers, created a small mirror with a drop of water and a hint of manna. He held it up to look at her, grinning playfully. "How's it looks, honey?" Arya's fingers shook with a small tremble as she stroked the fragile orchid in her hair, her eyes on the verge of welling over with tears. Her smile, however, was one of unadulterated joy and soft amazement. "It's beautiful," she breathed, her voice strained with emotion. "I will always treasure it." Her smile, soft and loving, said more than any words ever could. It was a moment in time, uncomplicated yet unforgettable. Leon smiled gently and nodded, his eyes holding Arya's for a moment before he picked up a deep blue hairpiece in the shape of a curling wave, its sapphire stones glinting softly. He walked over to Cynthia, setting it in her raven-black hair with a gentle touch. A shiver ran through her. His was the first touch from a man, piercing her calm facade. Her heart pounded. Why is this so different? She thought. It was discomfiting but reassuring. When she beheld herself in the water mirror Leon summoned, she was briefly shocked. Cynthia gasped. "Is this me really?" The hairpiece fit her hair perfectly, but also evoked a vulnerable, unaccustomed emotion in her heart. She caught Leon's eye, whispering, "Thank you." Her heart glowed with his concern. Leon smiled at Cynthia, nodding in appreciation, before moving on to the next piece. He took up next the emerald green hairpiece, the shape of intertwining leaves, its sheen like life itself. He went to Kyra, gently setting the piece in her rich green hair. Kyra's normally stoic face relaxed, a soft blush rising to her cheeks. "I never thought something like this for me," she thought, her heart skipping a beat. When she caught a glimpse of herself in the water mirror Leon called forth, she was taken aback for an instant. The perfection of the work against her hair took her breath away. She breathed in softly, her voice shaking faintly. "It's beautiful," she whispered, glancing up at him with true appreciation. "Thank you, Lord Leon." Then Leon took up the golden hairpiece, a sunburst with small amber crystals that appeared to radiate with warmth. It was ideal for Syra's cheerful and sunny nature. As he carefully put the piece in her hair, Syra's excitement spilled over. She enveloped him in her arms in an instant, her face radiating happiness. "Thank you, Lord," she exclaimed, her voice full of thankfulness, nuzzling him lovingly. Leon was taken aback for a moment, but he laughed, patting her head gently. Her lively personality was contagious, and a smile came to his face automatically. Kyra suddenly cleared her throat hard, eyes wide with alarm. "Syra, what are you doing with the Lord?" Syra laughed playfully, her eyes glinting. "What? I just said thank you. Don't act like you wouldn't want to squeeze him and thank him like this too." Kyra's face went red. She stuttered. What are you saying?" Syra smiled brightly, tilting her head. "I'm your twin, Kyra. Our natures and thoughts are almost the same, so don't act like you're not thinking it too." Kyra was rendered speechless, her blush deepening. Leon threw up his hands, smiling to himself. He knew their light-hearted teasing would get out of control, and with other people present. "Enough, both of you," he said, his smile not leaving his face. "No fighting here." And Kyra, he got closer to her, his voice lowering to a whisper. "If Syra is telling the truth, I'll hug you later." Kyra's breathing caught at his words. Syra, Arya, and Cynthia couldn't help but laugh at Kyra's embarrassed response, their titters light and mocking. Kyra's color grew brighter, her poise further eroded under their teasing glances. At last, he turned away from the box again. A silver hairpiece, crescent-shaped with minute crystal dew drops, shone in the light. He picked it up and approached Chloe slowly. Chloe blinked, perplexed. Her heart raced. Why is he approaching me? No, he cannot be. But when he stood in front of her, the silver hairpiece held gently with a tender smile, her eyes went wide in shock. But as he was about to set it into her hair, she retreated, her voice shaking. Oh Lord, wait. Why? Why are you bestowing this on me? Leon blinked, surprised by her outburst. What are you talking about? He asked, really confused. The other women exchanged glances, their faces a combination of surprise and confusion. Chloe curtsied slightly, her eyes cast downward. Lord, I'm just your subordinate's daughter. I'm not like them. She looked at Arya and the others. It doesn't feel right for you to offer me something like what you offer them, something you'd offer to them. I don't want to give offense to them in any way, or you. Don't, please, Lord. Her voice shook with trepidation, and her heart hurt as she spoke, feeling she did not deserve the attention due to those so much higher than her. The others let out soft sighs, comprehending her response. They understood why Chloe felt this way. The society they lived in was one of this sort. Commoners were treated as less than dirt under a noble's feet. To be given something of such worth, something like what a noble would bestow upon his wife, was seen as a challenge to the norms. It was taken very seriously, something that could even trigger the wrath of other nobles. But Leon wasn't like them. He wasn't like other nobles. She just doesn't know him yet, Arya thought, her heart hurting for the girl who hadn't yet understood the extent of Leon's niceness. Leon's eyes narrowed at Chloe, his jaw gaping at what he was hearing, before he released a hearty laugh. That's bullshit. Her eyes flashed up at his, confusion and astonishment crossing her face. I'm giving you a gift because I want to, not because of anything else. He spoke softly, his voice soothing. And for your thinking that taking something similar to what I've given them would offend them. He faced the women, a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Ladies, would you object if Chloe is given a gift like yours? The four women all nodded their heads with soft smiles, their faces warm and empathetic. See? Leon replied softly and reassuringly. They're not upset, and neither should you be. Please don't refuse my gift. Chloe remained motionless, the surprise of his words sinking in. Why was he being so kind, so generous, when she was merely the daughter of subordinates? The way the other women smiled at her made her feel as if she was a part of something special, yet it felt so unreal. She had never expected a noble, let alone a duke, to treat her this way. Leon moved forward, his fingers soft as he put the silver hairpiece in her dark hair. His hands did not shake, his eyes intent on her with a force that made her heart pound. Calling up a mirror, he murmured softly, "Look." Chloe gasped as she looked at her reflection. The silver hairpiece against her black hair shone like moonlight on a still night. Her heart hurt, torn between wonder and disbelief. If the Silver City girls had any idea she'd met the very duke that they all fantasized about, much less received a gift straight from his hands, they'd be green with jealousy. They'd even attempt to steal the hairpin from her, desperate to possess a fragment of what she now wore on her head. The mere possibility made her face flush with a hot, humiliated glow. Thank you," she murmured softly, her voice little more than a whisper, her heart still pounding from the generous gesture. Leon smiled warmly. "Don't thank me. If anyone should be thanking someone, it's me, for all of you helping me find the ideal gifts. You've helped me find perfect shop, and this visit gave me just what I needed. And that, to me, is the real blessing." Chloe stared at him, speechless. Before, I thought he was a prince. But now, he feels like something divine, generous, yet unreachable, yet kind enough to touch even the smallest of hearts. And all she wants is just a little piece of them. Her mind reeled, overwhelmed by his warmth and the generosity he showed her, a lowly commoner. She couldn't quite comprehend it, but in some way, it seemed an honor beyond description. 1,000,000 gold coin. Leon's back had turned to Torvin, his gaze serene but keen. The merchant had stood by and watched the whole event unfold, still at a distance. When Leon had chosen the first hairpiece for Arya, he had subtly created a shield around himself and the women, making sure that their private moments stayed just that. Torvin had witnessed in amazement how Leon had glided across the space, a silent intent in his movements. It was then that Cynthia, with a quick motion, had boosted Leon's barrier, her Grandmaster-level cultivation energy strengthening the protective barrier, making outsider to hard seeing what going inside the barriers. Torvin naturally stepped back as Cynthia's Grandmaster-level aura flashed. Torvin felt the huge pressure envelop him. The barrier was no normal shield, and he knew it would be foolish to cross it. He sensed the tension of the guards, but then lifted his hand, telling the guards to relax. Torvin grasped the implied rule. Leon, with a Grandmaster beside him, needed privacy, and it was not something to dispute, particularly in a store where the top cultivation was Master Realm. Then it all settled out, Leon regarding Cynthia with a slight nod. She smiled kindly, her essence withdrawing as the shield dissipated. Leon moved on to confront Torvin, his voice solid but not brutal. Leon cleared his throat to speak again, his tone pleasant but as pure as crystal. Mr. Torvin. Torvin, still standing humbly in front of the fancy table, stiffened like strings pulling taut. Yes, sir. Leon's eyes remained fixed on the ornament box, where 4 hairpieces shone softly, their dainty shape tucked away like precious stones in the shadows of the velvet. He smiled faintly, cocking his head. And I'll have these 4 as well. Torvin's face brightened. As you please, sir, he said with a bow and a wide merchant smile. Leon nodded, fingers running along the edge of the display box. Now, Mr. Torvin, how much is all 9 hairpieces? Torvin clasped his hands together. Each hairpiece, sir, is around 50,000 gold coins, he replied cautiously. So 9 of them collectively would be 450,000 gold coins. All the women standing around Leon were shocked again. Chloe stood motionlessly to one side, her fingertips shaking as she stroked the silver hairpiece now set amongst her dark tresses. 50,000 pieces of gold? Her heart accelerated at the notion. That would keep her king going for years. And it was given to her, a lower-born, a daughter of mere vassal. She couldn't possibly voice anything else. Not in dread, but deference. If she made a foolish comment, she would risk offending Lord Leon, and the thought of disappointing Lord Leon, it scared her more than anything. So, she clenched her lips together, locking the suffocating warmth within her heart like a treasured flame. The other ladies, Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra, observed with composed faces, though their eyes had a sparkle of surprise. They were aware that Leon had once purchased necklaces for princesses and queens more costly than these hairpieces, but that didn't render these presents any less valuable. These hairpieces were not about money. These hairpieces were something else, not due to their cost, but because he had selected each of them himself, paired them to their very soul, and placed them by his own hand. That act rendered them more valuable than any crown jewel. It made them feel noticed, loved. Leon interrupted them again, breaking them out of their reverie. So, Mr. Torvin, if I remember correctly, the necklaces before cost me 600,000 gold pieces, and now these are for 450,000. That makes it 1,050,000, right? Torvin nodded. Right, sir. As Leon's eyes swept over the store, it lingered, caught by a pendant suspended from a silk cord. It shone softly in the light, its lines simple and tasteful, yet compelling. His eyes narrowed by a fraction with interest, a spark of admiration flickering in their depths. And what about that pendant? He inquired. Torvin caught his eye and smiled. That one is 50,000 gold pieces, sir. Leon nodded nonchalantly. I'll take that one as well. Arya blinked in puzzlement. Darling, why did you buy another pendant? Leon smiled, winking at her teasingly. It's a secret, dear. Despite being puzzled, Arya smiled again. She trusted his every choice. If he purchased it, there was a reason. Leon addressed Torvin once more. So, my total bill is 1.1 million gold coins now. The women who were with him all gasped. That was no little amount. 1.1 million. The figure was colossal, enough to finance Silver City for decades. But for Leon, It was merely a whisper of his huge fortune spent in one lazy afternoon with languid ease. But for Leon, who controlled the keys not only to bygone Leon fortunes but to Moonwalker's ancestors' huge bequest, a figure like this was little more than a rumor in their tradition. But Torvin's heart was racing. 1,100,000 gold coins. This was not a sale. It was a historic deal cemented in the annals of the Black Gold Company. Across Moonstone's entire network of branches, yearly revenue hardly reached 2.2 million. And here now, in a single transaction, he'd locked up half that worth. His thoughts were dizzy at the prospect. His commission alone would be astronomical. Promotion? Virtually assured. This was not merely a transaction. It was destiny calling on his merchant's door, and Torvin was shaking before it, awed by victory. He swallowed hard, his hands quivering a little before he bent low in a bow. Your Grace, in deference to your benevolence, I will give a discount, 100,000 gold coins off. Leon smiled that rare, grateful smile. Then, thank you. Would you like to go downstairs and finalize the purchase? Torvin inquired humbly. Leon nodded, and the whole group descended to the ground floor. They stood in silence beside the highly polished counter for a moment before the faint jingling of armor announced the presence of 3 guards. 2 of them each held medium-sized ornament boxes, while the third handled a large one with both hands. They came in a neat fashion and deposited the boxes carefully on the desk, their actions being sharp and deferential. Torvin advanced smiling, unclipping the fastenings with a seasoned touch for Leon to verify the items. He lifted the top tiny box, where delicate necklaces lay within soft velvet. And then the next one, just another necklace. At last, he raised the big one, and in that were the 4 remaining hairpieces, every single one within a padded cell by itself, pristine and untouched. All just as chosen, said Torvin genially. Leon leaned forward to examine the contents, then nodded in approval. Perfect. Then he raised his left hand above him, and with a snap of his fingers, his voice rang out, cool but commanding, as he said a single word, black. In a flash of mana, a dark figure tall and dressed in dark black materialized behind Leon. The room grew tense. Everyone but Leon and his group stood instinctively in defense. Leon lifted his hand serenely, feeling the tension in the room. Mr. Torvin, don't be frightened, he said in a calm voice. He's my subordinate. Torvin blinked in surprise as a figure appeared silently next to Leon. The man had come without a whisper. No footsteps, no aura. Even the guards, conditioned to pick up on master-level cultivators, hadn't caught his coming until now. Torvin's heart jumped. He could hardly get words out. But Leon remained silent. The hooded figure moved forward and, in a single fluid movement, pulled out a medallion from beneath his robe, the emblem of House Moonwalker. Medallion shone threateningly in the shop's dim light. Only the Duke of Silver City and his descendants were allowed to use that crest. Torvin's breath was caught. That symbol, it could not be confused. Only one living man was entitled to wear it, and only his most loyal underlings bore it in his name. Slowly, Torvin's eyes came back to Leon. Golden eyes, black hair. The description fit the Duke of Silver City, a man seldom seen outside his castle walls. Impossible. Torvin breathed, comprehension dawning. He had heard rumors and whispers, but now the truth stood before him. Leon, the mysterious man who had just made a record-breaking purchase, was no other than the Duke of Silver City. Leon Moonwalker. Torvin's mind spun, the gravity of the discovery sinking in. He bowed low, his voice shaking. Your Grace, he stammered, reverence in his voice. Leon, as ever cool and collected, merely waved a hand in dismissal. Just head up, Mr. Torvin. Without another look in the direction of the merchant, Leon faced and looked in the direction of the desk. He made a slight movement with his right hand, and before anyone could even blink, the 3 boxes disappeared from the desk, sucked in effortlessly into his storage ring. He faced Black, his tone cold and authoritative. Black, take care of the payment. I want to keep on with my market walk. Black bowed his head respectfully. As you command, my lord. Without another word, Leon turned toward the door and began walking toward the exit. The women behind Leon exchanged knowing glances, their lips curving into gentle smiles as they followed him. Torvin gazed on in silence, wide-eyed and frozen in surprise. A legendary duke paid personal attention to his shop. He witnessed in raptures of amazement how Leon moved as if princely, with an air of command, followed by the five ladies as they shadows, with their faces besplendored by their acquisition jewels. A change occurred to the surroundings with the moving in of the Silver City's duke, with a man Torvin had never encountered except within whisper and rumors. The door of the shop swung open, and voila! The Duke of Silver City emerged from Black Gold Company, making Torvin stand agog, his mind still in the state of whispers of joy in Silver City. The Black Gold Company's great double doors opened, and Leon emerged into the lively center of Silver City's Market Street once more, sunlight flashing across his black linen robe. 5 women trailed behind him, each with hair ornaments and beaming smiles, the city's wind playing through their clothes like whispers of joy. Now that the serious business is done, Leon relaxed with a satisfied sigh, outstretched his arms as if unloading the burden of all that gold. Let's make the most of the rest of our day. Arya, Cynthia, and Kyra nodded softly, their smiles warm but soft. Chloe, while more reserved, nodded too, her eyes shining softly with a quiet appreciation. Syra, bubbling with energy, bounced up and down on her feet. "So you're taking us to eat street food like you said, Lord?" Leon gave her a mischievous grin. "That's right. Let's have some fun." As they were about to depart, Arya's voice, though quiet but full of purpose, got their attention. She stepped closer to Leon, eyes thoughtful, catching the other women's attention. "Darling," she started, her voice soft but with a tinge of worry, "I have to ask, why so much? Even for you, that was not cheap, that wonderment." Her tone was not caustic, only an expression of her real concern. She knew the great wealth Leon wielded, the riches bequeathed from his ancestors. Yet 1,000,000 gold coins in one afternoon was no minor gesture, even on his part. Leon switched to her side, his eyes warm and understanding. "My dear Arya," he answered softly, his voice imbued with a tenderness that she alone could bring out. "For some, this would be extravagance. But for myself, it's merely a small investment." "An investment?" Kyra repeated, raising an eyebrow in astonishment. Leon grinned, a wicked spark in his eye. "Yes, an investment," he replied suavely. "To capture your hearts," he went on, looking at each woman in turn, "and to steal your focus. To be the focus of your world, even if only for today." His tone was light, but underlying it was a sincerity that none could overlook. For an instant, time stood still. The world around them faded, and every woman felt a catch in her chest. Arya blushed slightly, still under the spell of his words. Kyra turned hastily, feigning interest in a fruit stand. Cynthia smiled softly, knowingly. Syra gasped and whispered in heart, "He speaks like that aloud." Chloe lowered her gaze, her cheeks flushed beneath the veil of her hair, a subtle warmth creeping up her neck. Leon clapped his hands together, a playful glint in his eyes as he broke the tension. "Enough of this chatter for now," he said with a mischievous smile. "Let's go find something to eat before I'm tempted to start reciting poetry about all your irresistible beauty." They laughed and proceeded along the busy market street, navigating through the throngs of people. A chorus of happy laughter and nods ensued as the lively marketplace welcomed them with its infectious energy. The atmosphere hummed with chatter, sizzling food on the streets, and the pure giggles of children. Between the stalls, there were carts heaped high with multicolored merchandise and the delectable, mouth-watering scent of chestnuts roasted to perfection. Grilled meats, spiced vegetables, and citrus fruit wafted through the air. Flutes were played and strings plucked on string instruments by street performers, their tunes drifting over the busy buzz of the market. Glittering magic trinkets glimmered in the moving sun. "Where do we go for good food?" Leon asked, his gaze roaming over the chaotic scene as he turned to Chloe. Chloe blinked in surprise, taken aback by his question, but nodded, pointing. "Over there," she said, her tone a little hesitant. That stall has fire-roasted meat buns. They're really good. Leon nodded curtly and took the group in that direction, pushing through the throng. A few moments later, they were sitting on a low bench beside the vendor. Leon had ordered a dozen buns, and now they were steaming hot and ready to be devoured. The first bite was bliss. Syra, not able to keep her joy contained, nearly melted. "Oh gods," she groaned, "this is so good." Even Arya, Kyra, and Cynthia, typically more elegant, couldn't resist letting out contented sighs, their eyes drifting shut as they tasted the flavors. Leon wiped his mouth with a napkin, his eyes shining with unobtrusive pride. There is something about the simplicity of the moment, the mutual pleasure of good food and better people, that made everything feel precisely as it should be. They weren't royalty at this moment. They were ordinary people relishing life's little joys. "Let's get some more," Syra cried between mouthfuls, her face flushed with delight. The others laughed and nodded, all wanting to indulge in the delectable spread. They wandered from stall to stall, tasting spiced fruits, grilled skewers, and crunchy pastries, each one better than the previous. As they settled back, satisfied, Leon felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was better than any treasure. It was not about crowns or gold. It was about the simple pleasures of existence and the bonds formed over experiences such as these. As they went on enjoying the street food, the group stumbled upon a huge boutique that was different from the rest of the shops, its windows shining with opulence. Silks of all colors of the rainbow hung on display, and the aroma of exquisite perfume filled the air. "Oh," Arya brightened. "That one seems promising." Without hesitation, she took Cynthia and Kyra's hands. "Syra, Chloe, come on." Leon arched an eyebrow. "And what about me?" Arya spun, a mischievous smile twisting her lips. "Wait here," she told him, her voice tinged with playfulness. "We'll be back soon." Leon arched an eyebrow, a spark of curiosity dancing in his golden eyes. "Do I get to know why?" he asked, his voice tinged with teasing. "No," Arias chimed in brightly. "Girls only." Leon chuckled, nodding in amusement. "All right then, I'll be here." With a chorus of giggles, the girls disappeared into the boutique, their laughter and excited chatter fading into the shop's plush interior. Leon stood still outside, leaning against a nearby post as he casually admired the city's slow-moving life. Pigeons fluttered across rooftops, their wings catching the last rays of the golden sun. Women walked by, some whispering, others sneaking glances at Leon. His golden eyes and calm demeanor attracted more than one admiring gaze. But he was not impressed, hands in pockets, observing the street as if it were an old acquaintance. Minutes became a half hour before the girls emerged. They exited the boutique, all of them with empty hands. Leon couldn't help but smile knowingly. He didn't need to ask. He had seen them utilizing their storage rings before. Any purchases they'd made were most probably already loaded onto their storage ring. "Well," with an amused twinkle in his eyes, Leon inquired, "what did you girls all buy?" Arya grinned at him with a wicked glint in her eyes. "Secrets," she teased. "You'll learn soon enough." Leon examined their faces, a smile playing on his own. He was certain they had something exciting up their sleeves, but for the moment, he let it slide. "I'll hold you to that," he said, nodding playfully. The group continued, plunging into the center of the marketplace, with a beat of the city pulsed through them, bustling with talk, melody, and the pungent aroma of street food. Hawkers called out their goods, rainbow-colored streamers danced on the wind, and the aroma of sugary pastries and seared meat wafted through the air like a soft greeting. They munched on sliced fruits, sprinkled with sugar, and bit into honey-glazed desserts. Glasses of ice-cold citrus nectar were shared among them, clipped and laced with joy after every sip. A crowded corner had a tiny audience under the thrall of a puppet show. Children sat cross-legged on the pavement's warm stones, laughing as a wooden prince bickered with a cunning fox. Leon, laughing, tossed a gold coin into the basket of the performer. The man stood rigid, his eyes wide, then smiled in awestruck thankfulness. Even the puppet bowed theatrically, as if having just received a rich reward. As the skies shifted into orange hues, painting the world in amber and gold, they came across an elderly woman selling small fruit candies wrapped in paper. Her hands were weathered, her back bent, but her eyes gleamed with kindness. Leon approached her quietly. "One for each of us, please." The woman began preparing the treats, but when she saw the gold coin Leon offered, she froze. "No, no, Lord. Too much. I can't." He gently closed her hand over the coin. "You've already given us something precious," he said softly. "A sweet memory." Tears rose in her eyes as she bent deeply, her hands shaking as she held out the candies. The group took them with subdued thanks. The sun was almost gone below the horizon by that time. The city was aglow with lanterns and soft magic lights suspended between the roofs. Evening songbirds chimed softly as the marketplace settled into evening peace from its busyness during the day. They walked quietly for a bit, enjoying the moment. Walking along the lighted street, the soft candy fruit in hand, each of the women bore a silent warmth within her heart. Cynthia inhaled the aroma of evening spices, thinking, "I haven't felt this relaxed in so long." Arya smiled to herself, the sweetness on her tongue repeating the softness of the day. "I want every afternoon to be like this." Kyra looked around at the Radiant Market. Simple things truly do create the best memories. Syra licked her candy and smiled. "Best day ever." Chloe held the candy, tracing its contours absently with her fingers, too overcome by the gesture to be able to eat it yet. "He gave me a memory that I'll never forget," she thought softly. As she chewed the candy, she could feel the weight of the silver hairpiece in her hair adjust ever so slightly, a quiet reminder. Leon looked at them, a satisfied silence washing over him. This simplicity is more valuable than any treasure. They walked in silence to the edge of the city square. A quiet alleyway appeared before them, softly lit by glowing stones that lined the pavement. It was the same alleyway Leon had walked into before. At the alley end, a dignified, gleaming black carriage stood waiting, its side adorned with the insignia of the Moonwalker. A few superior guards stood beside it, their stance alert and disciplined. Ronan, Chloe's father and Leon's inferior, stood patiently by the carriage steps. Captain Black and a couple of guards came out behind them as they approached. Ronan bowed respectfully. "Your Grace," he smiled. "The arrangements for your return to the mansion are all set." Leon regarded Ronan, giving a smile before inclining his head. "Thank you, Ronan," he said warmly, his voice containing a quiet but sincere gratitude. Ronan's lips twitched into a smile, his eyes showing both respect and relief. "It was my privilege, Your Grace," he answered. Chloe, moving slowly from the side of Leon, walked towards her father. She stood next to Ronan, her steps fluid but determined. Ronan observed her coming towards him, taking in a slight difference in her appearance. The way the silver hairpiece now sat on her dark hair, reflecting the light in a manner that made her seem almost otherworldly. Her eyes were wide, shining with an emotion he couldn't quite identify. But as a worldly man, he knew better than to inquire. The silent communication between father and daughter was all that was required. This was a moment to be enjoyed by her, and he would not take it from her. Ronan bowed politely to Leon again, his face thankful. "Thank you, my lord, for being so kind to my daughter today." Leon laughed, his grin tinged with humor. "Ronan, you don't have to thank me. On the contrary, I should thank you. Through Chloe, I was able to find the best gift that I was seeking, and she helped make my day a lot nicer with her information and ideas regarding the food stroll in store." He faced Chloe with a warm, genuine expression. "Thanks, Chloe." Chloe's heart skipped a beat, her cheeks flushing lightly at the compliment. She hastily dropped her eyes, her voice soft but firm. "Don't thank me, Lord. I feel honored to serve you." Ronan smiled proudly at his daughter, seeing the depth of respect between them. Leon's smile relaxed as he nodded, his eyes rising to the heavens. It was now nearly dark, and he knew his time had arrived. "I must depart now, Ronan," he stated, his voice firm. Ronan nodded back, bowing once more. "Safe journey, my lord," he stated, his voice bearing the weight of his devotion. Chloe bowed respectfully as well. Safe journey, lord and ladies. Her heart hurt a little at the prospect of his departure. She couldn't say if she would ever lay eyes on him again, but she kept this to herself, covering the shy longing inside. When he departed, she remained where she was, observing him rode up into the carriage, a mix of thankfulness and melancholy in her heart. As they stepped into the carriage, the air was not filled with goodbyes, but with memories. The laughter that still rang in their hearts, the flavor of food still on their tongues, the glint of ornaments catching the fading light of the sunset. These would endure longer than any treasure. And as the carriage drove off beneath the darkening horizon, the day ended not in pomp, but in warmth, such as the last note of a great song. Moonlit arrival. The elegant black carriage came to a smooth stop before the grand gates of the Moonwalker Mansion. Glowing under the pale light of twin moons, the estate's towering profile stood tall and still, like an awakened titan guarding its world. With a smooth gesture, the footman opened the gates, and the Moonwalker family crest glimmered in moonlight. The carriage moved forward effortlessly, its wheels whispering on the cobblestones until it came to a stop in front of the great mansion entrance. With a soft creak, the carriage door swung open, and Leon alighted first. He adjusted his stance, allowing the crisp night air to rush through his matted hair and over the black folds of his robe. His golden eyes, serene but piercing, swept the familiar enveloped with subtle contentment. Each in turn, the women descended. Arya, with her poised poise, Cynthia, with a refined smile, Kyra, reserved and observant, and Syra, her eyes still aglow from the thrill of the market walk. Their hair adornments glimmered softly in the moonlight as they descended beside Leon. Behind them, a small group of elite guards stepped forward in silent precision to flank the group. Commander Black led them, his silver armor glinting in the faint light as he strode forward in his typical calm, steady pace, projecting unspoken authority and unyielding discipline. Leon gazed upon his home with a quiet, happy smile. At last, home, he said warmly, his voice filled with a profound sense of belonging. Arya stood beside him and smiled, her voice soft as velvet. Yes, we're finally home, she said, glancing at the mansion. The world outside may be full of excitement, but nothing compares to home sweet home. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra nodded in agreement, their expressions calm, touched by the peace of the moment. Leon faced Captain Black, a glint of humor dancing in his golden eyes. Thanks for your help, Captain. Now go, get your rest, he replied with easy warmth. Captain Black gave a nod of assent and bowed slightly himself, his manner respectful and in control. Good night, lord and ladies, he supplied with another incline of his head, before turning sharply on his heel and disappearing into the darkness, the folds of his cape fluttering softly. The other guards stood respectfully before filtering away, moving as silent as shadows at night. Leon now turned to face the women alongside him. Shall we go in? He asked politely. Arya and the rest nodded, and as a unit, they mounted the steps leading to the majestic mansion. Upon opening the doors of the mansion, spilling a golden radiance onto the stone path, their forms retreated into the hospitable warmth. As they made their way through the gleaming corridor, Arya's voice pierced the hush. Darling, she whispered. Leon stops, cast a look in her direction, arching an eyebrow in puzzlement. Smiling, she gently touched his arm. Go to your room. I have some things I need to tell Lillian about tomorrow's trip. Leon cocked his head, a thoughtful expression, then nodded curtly. Okay, dear, he drawled, a roguish smile twisting his lips. A mischievous glint danced in his golden eyes. But come soon. I'll be expecting you. And don't be too slow, or you'll be walking tomorrow with wobbly legs. Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra shared wide-eyed stares, their cheeks flushing a tender pink at his impertinent words. Arya rolled her eyes with a mock sigh, though a blush betrayed her amusement. Shameless. For you. Forever. Leon replied smoothly, voice warm with affection. Arya let out a soft giggle despite herself, the sound light and genuine. The others joined in, charmed by the ease with which he stirred warmth and laughter. "Now go," Arya said, waving him off playfully. "Let me finish up, then I'll join you." Leon smiled warmly at them all and nodded. "Okay, I'm off to my room then. But hurry, okay?" Arya's eyes softened, her voice soft. "Okay, darling." Leon turned to Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra before he left. "Good night, you three," he said warmly. They each wished him the same in soft voices and small curtsies. "Good night, Lord Leon." With a last smile, Leon strode away in his dark robes, swinging as he disappeared into the corridor, the dancing candlelight flashing on his retreating form. Arya's eyes followed Leon down the corridor, and then she turned to the three women, her smile a sly, knowing one. "Now," she said suavely, mischief flickering in her eyes, "let's go get ready to give my darling his gift." Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra all blushed a deeper red, their cheeks aglow with anticipation and embarrassment both. But in spite of their flustered faces, they nodded enthusiastically. With a common sense of purpose and muted excitement, the four women strolled deeper into the mansion. Their soft laughter echoed through the great halls, dying softly into the night. Leon entered the silence of his room, the door closing softly behind him. There was quiet and luxury like an old friend to greet him, and he relaxed with a soft, sighing breath as golden eyes surveyed the familiar territory. Finally, he breathed softly, the barest of smiles playing about his lips, some peace. Then, without delay, he went to the bathroom. Warm steam wafted through the air as he washed off the dust and weariness of the day, the water easing his knotted muscles. A few minutes later, he emerged, a towel slung over his shoulder, loose black trousers the only clothing he wore. His bare chest glimmered dimly in the moonlight pouring through the open balcony, each chiseled muscle reflecting the silver light. If Leon had roamed the mansion halls in his present state, bare-chested, muscles sheening under moonlight, it's probable every maid in the estate, or at least Cynthia, Kyra, Syra, and even Arya herself, would have collapsed instantly. But Leon, undeterred by such consideration, walked with gentle stealth toward the window, the cold night wind brushing soothingly against his wet skin. He closed his eyes for an instant, letting the past caress his face before opening them to look up at the sky. 2 moons hung, suspended above like mute silver guardians. He breathed softly, a reminiscent smile creeping onto his lips. "Within a week," Leon whispered, his gaze raised upwards. "An entire month fulfilled since I entered this world." The night air rustled on the open balcony, sending chilly breeze across the exposed skin of his body. The day had been quite enjoyable today. The street tour of the market with others, the laughing, and the flirtatious looks. All the women enjoying street food and receiving gifts, smiling at him, genuinely made the day pleasant. He leaned his head to the twin moons, their silvery light casting the room in pale hues. When he raised his eyes, a memory flared. Copper hair falling like silk, eyes that shone with fire and laughter. His daughter and his first wife, Rias. He felt a pang in his heart for an instant, just a flash. The silence of her voice, her infuriating pout, her uncontrolled love, he ached for all of them. "I miss you, my little seductress," he whispered, a fond smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I know you'd already be scolding me in your heart for not arriving in the capital yet." He chuckled softly, the sound low and amused. "But don't worry," he added, his voice lowering to a wicked whisper. "I'll be there shortly, and when I am, you'll be exactly where you belong, beneath me." His golden eyes glinted with wickedness, the smile spreading just a little wider. But as his mind wandered to the capital, his face changed. The realization of the events to come kindled a deeper determination. His eyes narrowed, intent. The capital, the princess's coming-of-age ceremony, a golden chance to take his first true step, not only for his desires, but for the safe and secure future of his wives. Tomorrow I go to the capital. He spoke low, his voice weighted with intent. And with that, the first true step is taken toward Galvia's throne. His smile curved into one of slyness, his eyes narrowing to a cold gleam. The King of Moonstone has no notion of who he's welcomed into his capital. He breathed, golden eyes shining with soft, merciless ambition. The one who will consume his kingdom and forge a legend upon Galvia's pages. Daydreaming, Leon failed to notice the door creaking open behind him. A body crept into the room, as quiet as a ghost, eyes wide and aglow as they fixed on his half-naked body under moonlight. The body stopped, caught its breath, racing heart. Figure did not say a word, only stared, enchanted by the way the light danced along his chiseled muscles, the smooth curve of his shoulders. The view was addicting, impossible to avert eyes from. But just as the moment settled, Leon felt it. Someone stare on his back, he slowly turned. His expression shifted from mild surprise to a mischievous smile, lips curving with an unmistakable glint in his golden eyes. "Well," he said softly, his voice warm with amusement. "You've decided to join me, then?" Amusement danced in his golden eyes as he leaned slightly, the playful tension in his expression undeniable. And so the night stood its breath in awe, hoping to see what would unfold.